Hello, everybody. Joe DeLore here from Analog Man Cave, and we are joined with Joe Bloch, the Greyhawk Grognard himself from BRW Games. What's up, Joe?
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming, man. You, my second victim on this long form interview thing, and Greg Christopher, I guilted him into it. He spent 4 hours, and 4 hours 15 minutes. I figured, maybe two and a half. He's like, we're doing it. We're going for it. All right. He wanted to set the high water mark, he said. So I'm like, oh, shit, you're going to scare everybody away. That's not setting a high water mark, man.
No, man, if my videos go longer than 15 minutes, I think I'm doing something wrong.
We were just saying, it's a different approach to doing videos, right? Oh, speaking of doing videos, I got to look on Facebook because Facebook sucks ass. And I have to set my audience to more than just me. So give me 1 second here. Edit audience public. All right, Facebook is going. It's going live on X. Yes, it's live on X. Joe, are you live right now on your channel? It should be streaming over there.
Good question. Let's take a look.
Yeah, let's take a look, man. Let's take a look. I do believe you are, though. Let's see. We're going there. We are live on YouTube. Yes, we are live on YouTube.
I'm here. There we go.
All right, cool. And we're going. I think we're live on Rumble. We're doing 6 platforms at once here, guys. This is kind of slick. So yeah, we're live on Rumble too. Pretty sweet. Oh, I just brought Rumble's live audio into this one. Fantastic. All right, and this is the amateur hour, guys, for me at least. All right, guys. So listen, Joe, thanks for joining. There's a lot of history, that we have shared history. You've just known each other forever through the blogs. We've known each other, through the OSR, the early days of the OSR. And it just, we just like a lot of shared background, shared people in common. And I think shared background in terms of just growing up. We seem to be about the same age, right? I'm 33, so yeah. my ass. At the same age, though, I think in our 50s-ish or so.
Yeah.
Right. And so where did you grow up, man? Are you from Jersey originally?
Yeah, I grew up in Morristown, New Jersey.
Okay.
Which is
All right.
Little town, maybe 45 minutes from New York.
Yeah.
I was a kid in the 70s, teenager in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the golden age of TV. I got to see Star Trek. I actually remember watching Star Trek the animated show when it was first on.
Wow.
And stuff like that. We got all the good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was just a great time to be a kid.
It really was. It was the what is the meme that talks about Gen X where it's growing up on neglect and water hose water, It's like that thing. Yeah. It's it's
raised on neglect and hose water. Yeah.
Neglect and hose water. That was it. Yeah. So it's because remember when Stranger Things came out and it was all the uproar with kids just riding their bikes all day and be home with dinner when the lights came on?
That's what we did. We would we had a big woods right by my house, and we would just all the kids in the neighborhood. They would be down by the creek. We'd go into town. We'd go to the pool, and it was just nothing happened. We all just roamed around like a pack of hyenas.
I know. I remember getting all the kids in the neighborhood. I'm 6 years old, 5 years old. We all get together. We get on one group of kids on one yard, us in my yard, and we grabbed everything that was dangerous that we could throw at the other group. It was war, right? Rocks, crab apples, big heavy sticks, and we just went to war and just started until somebody got hurt, and then the ambulance came, and then nobody got in trouble for it. But just the way it was,
Yeah, we actually painted remember Foursquare?
No, Foursquare
with the big red rubber ball, and you'd bounce it. And you played it in a 4-square box, and you would have to bounce the thing. And we painted one on the street right under like the only street lamp.
Yeah.
So we could play till like 10 o'clock in the summer.
Nice. We were doing lawn darts. Remember those things?
I remember the lawn darts.
Oh yeah, you throw as high as you can, and then you stand under it and try to dodge before it hit you. And it was like literally a metal dart, like you see, like a D&D dart, like an AD&D
exactly. It's a D&D dart that does D3 damage. Yeah.
The thing will kill you. The thing will kill you. So, I think it would do more than D3 if that right through the freaking skull if it nailed you. It's evil, man. But that's how it was.
The Romans used those as weapons.
Did they really?
Yeah, they would actually chuck them as weapons.
Jesus. They banned them after a few years, but I remember there was a kids version. They took away the point, right, and they rounded it but inside of it was a lump of cement. So it still weighed a pound, right? And so let's not have the kids get hurt with a dart through the eye. Let's just, like crush their skull, with this pound heavy thing. So yeah, it's a different attitude, different way of being growing up, But Morristown, I think that was the place where, if you've seen The Sopranos, right? You see The Sopranos?
Oh yeah.
Remember the episode where they're looking for the kid who ratted them out, and little pussy or big pussy, whatever his name, one of the pussies said, "Where is he at?" Oh, and there's such and such town, Morristown, I think. Is that where the George Washington Superior place at? And they said, yeah. Is that the town?
Oh my God, because I was 10 years old in 1976, so I'm giving you my exact age.
Gotcha.
And so there was the bicentennial, and in like fourth grade, you could not get away from the bicentennial because Morristown was Washington's headquarters.
Oh, yeah.
We had Fort Nonsense. We have all this Revolutionary War stuff in the town. So you couldn't get away from the patriotic displays and everything in Morristown.
That's awesome. I remember the tall ships. I was a couple years younger than you, but I remember the tall ships in New York Harbor. Remember that? And they all came through. And we have the 250th coming up, right? This year? Next year?
Yeah. Oh, no.
Next year?
Next year.
Yeah, that's going to be a big deal. I mean, I don't know what the hell they're going to do. With fireworks, tall ships again, that should be a fun thing. Yeah. Little round of patriotism there. We're not getting into politics, guys. Just, So what we got here in the audience? We got 36 people. Holy crap-a-moly. Let's see. We got 6 from X, Twitter. None from Facebook, as per usual. The Facebook hates me. We got 17 on my channel. We got 11 on your channel, and we got Rumble coming in with 1. And we're doing good here, guys. We're doing good. And Twitch got a few over there as well. So thank you for watching, you guys. So Joe, I met you at North Texas a few years ago. If you remember, I asked you how you convinced your wife to let you put up the Greyhawk curtains. That's a good
I've
question.
actually moved the curtains now. They're on a like a backdrop pole right behind my desk. So and then I put them up when I'm not using them.
Nice.
So
your
they're a little less conspicuous.
Do you bring that to cons as a backdrop too, or no?
It probably should start. Because I've got the roll up thing for my when I'm vending at a booth. Mm-hmm. But I think these would be a bigger draw. And now I actually have Greyhawk books to sell.
Yeah. So. Yeah, that's true. That's true. We get all that. I got so much of your stuff here. I was unloading my shelf and pulling off all the stuff for like visual aids, when we start doing it and everything. And I was telling Joe before the show, I was because I had to do a recent remodel in here to fit everything I've been buying recently, and I bought everything he's ever put out, I think, basically, and even the little modules, and I can't find any little modules. So Joe's getting a bonus because I have to rebuy all his little modules. Not little, they're normal size modules. I think I just have the one here. That's it. So I got to buy more of them, and then as soon as I bring them home, I'll go find the ones I can't find. So that's pretty much how it's going to go.
And it's funny because I see more people are commenting about the curtains. The reason I originally got the curtains was because in my videos, you used to be able to see through to my dining room.
Yeah,
my dining room was a complete mess. So I just got the curtains to hide the dining room.
That's funny. It worked. The Kato says, I got to meet Joe at ShireCon last year. Adventures Dark and Deep. Beastary is now my go-to monster manual. I agree.
Awesome. I love to hear it.
It's the best old school monster manual. I've said that before. The best old school monster manual there is. And then if you combine it with this, the random terrain generator, it's every type of terrain in the world with every monster in the monster manual. So yeah.
Because there's a revised version of that book.
No, I didn't. Where is that?
Book of Lost Tables. The Book of Lost Tables has that. Plus it's completely beefed up. It has all the monsters with their proper names, and it also has random towns now.
All right, dude.
So you can actually dice out an entire town or city.
Bring that to Central New York, man.
I'll have it.
Yeah. I'll be picking it up there too. Bring all your stuff. I'll be unloading some money. That'd be good. So what did you start with first? RPGs or miniature war games when you were a kid?
Neither. I started with hex and counter war games.
Really? What is that?
Yeah, back in the mid 70s, a friend of mine had an old Avalon Hill game called Tactics 2, which had little cardboard counters and a map and everything, and you move it. And I remember I was like 8 years old, and I was sitting there just all summer long reading through the rules over and over and over until I got it.
Interesting.
And it's a simple game, it's meant to be kind of an introductory war game. And then once I started that, and I got a couple friends in to play those, and then it just took off. I we would get SPI. I would con my mom into driving us into the city to go to the Complete Strategist.
Wow, that's a great mother. She pulled that driving into New York City.
Yeah,
it's right next to the Empire State Building. That's a tourist.
Right, it's around the corner from the Empire State Building,
Jesus.
and in the Empire State Building there was a hobby place called Polk, and they sold games there too. And they sold these plastic what are they called? Atlantic miniatures, I guess they were, and they had Romans and Egyptians and Greeks and everything. And I got had a whole mess of those and play around with them. But they sold these war games, and then they said, well, we don't have that one, but just go around the corner and you go to the Complete Strategist. And I was like, and that
Paradise, right? Yeah.
And then a couple years later, that's when I got into D&D because you couldn't get away from it in the magazines and stuff. And I got the white box with the little brown books.
Really?
Couldn't for the life of me figure. This would have been 1976. Yeah,
10 years
this would have
old.
been 76, 77, and I couldn't understand it for the life of me. And then I got the Holmes Basic set.
Okay.
And we played, and that instantly clicked because that's designed to teach you how to play.
Yes.
And we played that all summer long, and then we graduated to AD&D.
Okay. All right.
So that would have been 77.
Okay, so you're at the early days. You picked it up then. I got into 84 with Beckme. I started with the basic set. Basically, I was playing AD&D at high school, and the guy says, "Oh, you got to start with basic. You can't start with advanced." I'm like, "Okay, I'll follow the rules." What do I know, right? So of course I couldn't afford it. So my paper route money I ended up getting for Christmas, and my brother and I dived into it and got into it. And then we had to in our minds we have to play at least through the basic and expert before we could go to advanced. So we got into a few levels of expert, the blue box. Then we got into advanced after that. But we always had the advanced books, reading it, getting ready for it.
Yeah, I never did that. I just went from Holmes, which I still have my original Holmes.
Really,
it's such a great expression of the game.
Nice.
And went to AD&D, and then we went to second edition when that came out, and I played that a lot in the Air Force and in college, and then they went to third, and I just kind of went forwards.
Yeah.
And went back to first, but I kind of took a hiatus for a little bit.
Yeah. We all did. After and most people took, you get out of college and then you get into real life, right? You got to do stuff. You got to work. You got to grind. You got to do whatever you got to do. And then it's like, oh man, fuck this grinding. I got to play D&D again.
Yeah. For me, it was when I got out of the Air Force because we could, I could still do it in the Air Force. I still had a group of friends in the Air Force we could play. And then we got transferred and everything. And I just kind of set it aside. And then when I got out, it was like, I got to get an apartment and a job. And
Yeah. And then some people sold their books or gave it away, or let them rot.
I gave away most of my stuff, my like war games and minis and stuff. But I slowly clawed it all back. So
not the originals though. I know there's one thing you gave away or sold or got rid of.
Yeah, I did. I was a complete. Can I demonetize you here?
Oh, go for it. I think after the first 7 minutes, you're good. Then you can just drop the F-bomb. You can't say the C word, but you drop F-bombs left and right. Yeah.
I fucked up royally because I had the very first ever sold copy of Temple of Elemental Evil, and it was signed and by Gary Gygax because I was at Gen Con. I was one of those. I was at the running of the geeks. And the doors open, and I went straight for the TSR thing and got the very first one that was ever sold. He signed it.
That's a great phrase.
Yeah, you never heard that? That's
a great phrase. That's what it is.
When they open up the doors, and then all the D&D geeks just pour into the vending hall.
I've seen it. A bunch of fat fucks running in. They're just smelly fat fuckers.
I was the first one in, and I nailed it. And then, I guess it was the 90s. It would have been the early mid 90s. I sold it off for a pittance because I didn't need it anymore.
Oh yeah,
I was never going to play D&D again.
Oh yeah, you're growing up. You didn't need that stuff. Yeah. And here we are. Wonder who has that, dude. I wonder if anyone's.
I don't know. I keep sharing the story in the hopes that the guy who bought it from me will chime in.
Yeah, and just taunt you with it. Here.
Exactly.
$4 million.
Yeah.
Sentimental value.
But I still have a copy of the Greyhawk little brown book that he signed for me at the same con. So
nice.
I have that.
Nice. So you knew Gary way back. We were like mid 20s at that point. You met him?
That would have late teens, early 20s.
So is he still
I know.
at
No,
TSR?
it was my late teens because I was not old enough to drink.
Okay.
But I convinced a bartender to give me a yard of beer to take to Gary at the bar at a table in the bar.
Oh, smart.
So I must have been 17 at the time.
Yeah. Nice. A yard of beer.
Yeah.
That's a phrase. Jesus. Nice. So Gary, did you give it to Gary? Or did you just drink it
Yeah,
yourself?
I gave it to Gary. I
Oh, all right.
fanboyed with him for a minute, and he was very gracious. He was very polite. He was nice as hell. And then I went and left him alone. So that's my I met Gary story.
So we're like 91, 92. He's still at TSR. The shit didn't hit the fan then, right?
No, he was long gone from TSR at this point.
Okay.
No, he couldn't have been because this would have been 85 because that's when when did Temple of Elemental Evil come out? Was
84. I think it was 84. Yeah. So he was still there. He was still popping along.
Yeah.
He was doing the California hookers and blow thing, I think, at the time, wasn't he?
Yeah, exactly.
the California experience, trying to break into Hollywood. We did get the D&D cartoon out of that, though.
Yes, absolutely.
Man, I love that thing, man. That was perfect for my age. A little bit younger, that was perfect. In the 80s, having that thing, it was like, oh my, it's the greatest thing ever. I had the DVD on my shelf just for nostalgia's sake.
See, for me, it was I really liked the cartoon, but I was much more into G.I. Joe and Transformers.
Okay.
For the cartoons, but I was a big fan of all those kinds of shows, Thundercats and all that.
Yeah, I love my brother loved the G.I. Joe stuff. He had all the toys. He always bought the toys, and the dog ate it. So I'm like, I'm not gonna buy toys and have the dog eat my shit. No, hell with that. Yeah, it wasn't worth it. So all right, so you get into. Do you remember your first game ever of D&D? Like what it was, who DM'd it, like what set the stage?
Yeah, I DM'd it.
Yeah,
with my friend Tom, who's passed away, and it was In Search of the Unknown. That was the module that came with my copy of Holmes Basic.
Okay.
And that's another great one because it is written to teach you how to play.
Yeah.
Half the module is, instructions basically on how to play the game.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of fun. And it's a neat module. Zeligar and Rogan are to this day like iconic just from that one thing.
That's awesome.
And it's funny because that's one of the few modules that they've retconned out of Greyhawk, because the first printing that I have has a little paragraph that says, in the world of Greyhawk setting, and this was before Greyhawk came out.
Yeah.
But in the world of Greyhawk setting, you could put it here, here, or here. And in later printings of the module, they took out that paragraph. I think it's because they retconned all of the B modules into Mystara, I guess.
Okay.
And then later they started retconning things into Greyhawk. So like Keep on the Borderlands is now part of Starich or wherever. So it's just weird that they one went one way and the other went the other way.
That's funny. I got into the whole Mystara setting over COVID when I was I wasn't going to bars. I had this extra money all of a sudden. I'm like, wow, this is how much I spend on bars. Shit, I might as well just use it wisely, and it filled in all the gaps in my collection, right? Because I'd bought a few things at various places. I got a few good scores from Craigslist. People were getting rid of their shit really cheap before there was a market for it. I was just buying up stuff, and I had some gaps in there, so I bought all those gazetteer books, and I had a few missing, and I'm finally diving into it. I'm like, what in the hell is this, and how did I miss it? Because my whole source of shit was Walden Books at a crappy little mall in my crappy little town. And if they didn't have it, I didn't know it existed. Right. Yeah. So basically, I'm like, what is this? And I'm diving in. Bargle lives here. Holy shit. Because Bargle was the Beckme Menser box. He was the bad guy who killed the girl you had a crush on. Right. And you're you're in your solo adventure that you had to do by, if you do this, go to number 2 and 10. If you do this, go to number 12 and all that kind of stuff. Right. So yeah, Bargle was there and everything. I'm like, holy crap. So Bargle's my guy. You're talking about your names there. Bargle was my dude. Like I had Bargle recently in a game with my brother. He was a high level wizard, this and that. And Bargle was the head of the place. And I said, I left the name out for a while. And then I finally dropped it on him. He goes, Bargle? Yes. I'm going to kill Bargle. I'm going to get revenge 40 years later. Oh, man. That's good shit. So you ran the game, you DM'd it. How did it go? Who played?
It was just me and my friend Tom.
Okay.
And we went through it. We were still feeling our way through how to actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I don't remember a lot of the specifics, but I remember that's what hooked us into playing. And until we both got out of high school, we would play all the time, and then brought in more friends. to play.
Nice.
It was, but that was it. That was my gateway drug, was In Search of the Unknown.
Yeah. Mine was just some dude made it up in high school, and then we of course did all the basic modules. We had I think the Silver Princess came with the book we got, and Menser box set, and we got into it through there. Bought a few whatever the modules they had of all the books. Those are the ones, And then
we had a comic book store that sold D&D, Fat Moose Comics.
Nice.
And I actually worked there for a while, and we would just hang out there all day, and then we would play D&D at night. And every Friday night, because his store was in the mall, and then next door to him was this huge clothing store that went out of business, so it was just this big empty space. So he convinced the mall to let him have it on Friday nights, to let the kids play D&D. So there would be 120 kids all sitting on the floor, on the carpet, in these little groups playing D&D, and the mall loved it, because we were all going to the arcade, we were all buying pizza, we were all buying Chinese, we were all buying McDonald's. We're patronizing all the stores in the mall. This comic book store owner is bringing in all this money into the mall. They must have loved it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I didn't have any like stores near me to do this stuff. So I just like grabbed friends or wrote my sister in and killed her character off and made fun of her forever. Things like that. Like whoever friends we could rope into doing it, just rainy days or long weekends or something like that. But it was weird because I had never seen, other than a couple kids in high school, I had never seen anybody run or play D&D other than me. And so you're doing this in the bubble. And until the SR hit and you get to watch people do it, and you realize that, wow, I'm not doing it wrong. I'm not doing it stupid. Other people do it like this too. And there's many ways to do it. And you feel like validated in some way, I hadn't gone to cons or anything either, so it was kind of fun.
I've been going to Wargame cons, because they had Wargaming conventions. They had Atlanticon and Gen Con East and Origins East and all that. And I would, at first it was just, we'd go for the day. I'd get my mom or my dad to take me. And I remember just thinking, I think it was my very first con. And I played a few games, here or there, but there was this one guy who was cosplaying, and I'd never seen cosplay before. I'm like, I'm 9 years old. I don't know what any of this is. And this one guy was cosplaying as Leader Deathlock from Star Blazers.
Okay.
If I don't know, Space Battleship Yamato.
And
he's got the whole outfit on, and I couldn't believe it. And he was talking to me about the show and everything, but it was amazing. People actually do this. And then I started doing Star Trek cons and everything. So
did you cosplay? Who'd you dress up as?
I still cosplay.
Do you? No shit.
I went to, when I was still going to Comic-Con, I have a Riddler outfit that I do. And
really?
Right now,
the Riddler's outfit, that's a green tight, dude. You're not hiding anything.
Oh no, I know. I've got the jacket and the tie and the bowler hat.
Okay.
No, you don't want to see me in tights.
I was wondering, that's a bold move for a guy already.
And now I've actually got a Ike era uniform. So it's like the velour and I've got the flared out pants and the boots and everything. I haven't worn that out yet, but we're going to a sci-fi con this fall, and I'll probably have that. And then when I was in back in the 90s, before I got married, we were in Starfleet International, the big Star Trek fan club. Everybody cosplays in uniforms. And the ship I was on, because all the different local clubs are ships, and mine was an Imperial ship, so we were all from the Mirror Universe. Our uniforms were all from the Mirror Universe, and we had the sashes and the things were on the opposite side and stuff. It was a lot of fun.
If you're doing that, you got to do Mirror Star Trek. I mean, that's just, they're cool.
It was a lot of fun. And that's actually where I met my wife, was in the club.
No shit.
Yeah. So she had the uniform too. She had the Mirror Universe uniform on too. And we would go to cons, and then there'd be hundreds and hundreds of Starfleet people all in their uniforms.
Wow.
And yes, and after one con, I asked my wife out, and that was that.
Damn. And then how long until you got married? Then was it a Star Trek themed wedding?
It was not, but it was a Renaissance themed wedding.
All right, that's cool. Yeah. Did you come up in a horse and carriage and all that?
No, but the hotel we got married in is shaped like a castle. It's got like the crenellations on the top and everything.
Dude. That's awesome.
Yeah, and all my groomsmen got Ren Fair garb out of it.
Nice,
So,
nice.
yeah, we got married about a year and a half after that, I think.
All right, that's
but
cool.
I'd known her for a while in the club.
Yeah. That's pretty freaking cool, man. That's pretty cool. So you talk about a comic book store. So obviously you're into comics, I would imagine, right?
I was at the time. I kind of sort of keep up with it. I'm more of a comic movie person nowadays
Yeah.
than
MCU and
actual
all that.
comics.
Yeah.
But it was the heyday of comic books. This
Yep.
was, Secret Wars was the original Secret Wars was a thing.
Yeah.
And that's the era I got it. That's the era where the original the Marvel superheroes game that TSR came out with. That's the era of comic books that I was in.
Okay.
And that is a terrific game, by the way. To this day, it holds up.
I played that. I think Zach Smith ran it for me once. They ran a bunch of us, and it was like we did a crossover, Marvel, the other DC, and all that. And I'd never done this before, and it was like, oh, this is something. I get a few drinks, I'll play anything. I played the whole because I figured if I don't know the rules, I know how to smash stuff, right? So, so I could at least play the Hulk. And it was a fun time. It was a fun time, man. So instead of so you're not into comics now, and a little bit back then. How about fantasy literature? What did you read? Did you do the whole Tolkien thing?
I was a huge sci-fi fan for as long as I can remember. In fact, one of my earliest memories is my mother taking me to see 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Wow, really?
In the theater.
Damn.
So
how old?
Yeah. So
you must have been young,
I must have been 2.
2?
Yeah, I must have been about 2 when she took me.
Jesus, you remember that?
I remember it distinctly. Yeah.
Oh, Jesus. Agile Monk with a super chat. Thank you very much, Agile Monk, for in honor of having Joe Bloch on the show. Favorite TTRPG person of interest. Thank you very much, man. Appreciate
Thank you. Oh, and Chris, yes, I do remember Star Wars. With the fiery phoenix.
Oh yeah,
Zoltar from Planet Spectra.
That was awesome.
The trouble is, it's on some streaming stuff, and every time I go to watch it, it's always the episode with the Space Terrapin. And I don't know why. I just keep hitting that stupid Space Terrapin episode, and I don't know why.
Huh, that's interesting. I remember I would try to make the weapons out of whatever we had in the house, and the Keop weapon, that dude with the bolos. Remember that one? That was my favorite because you go to the that guy. He clicks and cleeks. He talks in.
Yeah.
But I would go to like the gumball machine, put in a quarter, get 2 of those rubber balls, get a string, and duct tape the shit out of the string. And then you just like throw it at your siblings, try to run down the hall fast. And then you just try to nail them. I nailed my brother one time, right face plant. It was a great, glorious brother moment there, Always 5 acting as 1. Yes. All right. So what about fantasy stuff besides sci-fi? Anything like that? I mean, Lord of the Rings.
I was The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, the original Conan books, those 8 Conan books, the paperbacks. I was reading H.P. Lovecraft.
Yeah.
Had those the black paperbacks with the weird covers on them.
Yeah.
And a lot of it came out of Famous Monsters of Filmland because I was a huge monster fan, obviously.
Okay.
It was all mixed up together. It wasn't segregated. You were just, if you were a sci-fi fan, you were also a fantasy fan. You were also a horror fan.
Yep.
I'd watch the horror movies on Channel 11 on Saturday afternoons.
Yes.
Always get Famous Monsters of Filmland.
Mm-hmm.
And I still remember on Channel 7 they had the 4:30 movie. And they had Planet of the Apes week.
Planet of the Apes all the time, at least twice a year.
Planet of the Apes. I ate that stuff up, and I have to. I got all the novels, and I was reading a lot of sci-fi and fantasy.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I actually read Colossus, the Forbin Project novel because I liked the movie.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Jesus. I was a late bloomer as a fiction reader. Like we didn't have a lot of money, but we had encyclopedias. I would read the encyclopedia cover to covers, and when it says "see alsos," I read there. See alsos. My father going from work, there's 20 books on the floor, me surrounded by it, just reading all that stuff. But then I finally got a paper and started buying. I was able to buy stuff. I'm like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. And go to the library and pick things up. It was awesome. It was awesome. But I get into it a little bit later. But Lord of the Rings is the first fantasy things, and then I get into like the Belgariad or Ray Feist stuff, all that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Those are good.
So when I was a kid, they had the Rankin Bass Hobbit and Return of the King, and that really crystallized it for me. and I don't remember if I actually read The Hobbit first or watched The Hobbit first,
Okay.
but I think I read The Hobbit first. But having those movies available to see on TV was just incredible.
Yeah.
At the time, because there was never anything like it.
What do you think? Like, for me, I know that there's some certain books that I've read that sort of solidified circuitry in my brain that I always try to duplicate in my games. Do you have anything like that?
Stafford and the Grey Mouser.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, without hesitation. When I'm talking about fantasy, Stafford and the Grey Mouser, because I just love the depiction of like the city of Lonkmar, and the relationship between the two characters, and that it has that kind of episodic, it's written in kind of an episodic style. Same thing with Conan.
Mm-hmm.
But I think much as I love Conan, I think Stafford and the Grey Mouser has a little more humor in it and makes it a little more approachable in that sense.
Yeah, I think so too. So you're definitely swords and sorcery. But you're not high fantasy.
Oh, I like it all.
Okay.
It's hard to write fantasy or sci-fi that I don't like.
Yeah.
Some people manage. Some people do manage, but on the whole,
favorite? What are you reading now? What do you like? What's your go-to? You're gonna go a new go-to.
Right now, what am I reading? I don't even remember. Oh, I've gotten onto an alternate history kick. So I'm reading the Harry. What's his name? The
Wizard.
Ray Harrison. No.
Harry Dresden, the wizard guy.
No. The author.
I'm not sure who you mean. I'm not a diver into alternative history though.
Yeah, it's.
What do you think of the movie Wizards? I've never seen the movie Wizards.
Oh, I love Wizards. That is a terrific Harry Harrison. That's it. And he's done a big series about it. What if the South won the Civil War? And he does and he kind of brings the story forward. And there's historical characters in other situations sometimes, and there's also some original characters.
That's cool.
So right now I'm in the one where there's the World War II, but there's still the South and the North are separate countries and they're at war. So it's like, the Battle of Pittsburgh is equivalent to Stalingrad, that kind of thing.
Yeah. That's pretty cool, man. That's pretty cool. Yeah. I like history, but I never get into alternative history. I think that might be something to dive into. If you had to recommend to somebody like me, what's the best alternative history book to get started into?
Well, I mean, you can't go wrong with the South winning the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also, there's a ton, obviously, of if Germany won World War II.
Okay.
And for that, there's one called Fatherland that actually got turned into a movie, and it is fantastic. It just because it takes, it's a murder mystery.
Okay.
But it's linked to World War II, and it takes place in a universe where the Germans won.
All right.
And it's just, it's so well put together.
Yeah.
That'd be my if you can find a copy of Fatherland.
All right, that's cool. Anybody out there, what's everybody else looking at in terms of what they're reading? I like to catch up with some of the comments. They're coming fast and furious today, man. You brought in a lot of people, dude. And by the way, anybody who's on my channel watching, go subscribe to Joe's. Joe's a great guy. His channel is Greyhawk Grognard, right, Joe?
Greyhawk Grognard, and vice versa. If you're on my channel, go to Joe's and subscribe to that.
Yeah. All right. So we got a lot of cosplayers. Let's see. 5 acting as one. All right. Evildoers. Blah blah blah. Movie Wizards. Edgar Rice Burroughs. I like the Tarzan books. I never read the Mars books. I got them back there though. Harry Turtledove. Robert Silverberg. A lot of people are recommending books here. And guys, all these comments are going to be on the replay. If you're watching this later, you get to see all the comments right in the screen and in the bottom as well. So if you want to catch up again, you don't have to take notes or anything if you're listening in the car or something like that. So, all right. So you got into I know that you got into a little bit of publishing early on, right? I think you published for Dragon Magazine back in the day, didn't you?
I had an article published in Dragon Magazine back in the 90s.
Yeah.
That was my Pomarge article, and
nice.
See the Pomarge and Die. And I just did a huge, history dump and where the humanoids are, and I invented a new quasi deity because they had just come out with quasi deities, and I love it. So I invented Provis, and it was just looking back on it, I would have done it a lot differently today, but it was still fun. And I actually got paid, which was
really. What they pay you? Just out of curiosity.
What's that?
What they pay you for that? What would they pay back
God,
then?
I don't even remember. I think it might have been like $80.
$80? That's pretty cool, man. You got a check from TSR for $80. I mean, that's the shit, That's the shit.
Yeah, but it's mostly that I have like 5 copies of it and of the magazine. I'm a professional author now.
That's it. That's it. That's what Stephen King said, though, in his book on writing. He wrote, book on writing. He wrote, talk about how do you become a professional author? He says, if you wrote something, you got paid for it, and you took that money and you paid a bill, you're a professional writer. That's all it takes.
Dance Macabre is the book you're talking about, and that's actually my favorite Stephen King book. I'm not a big fan of Stephen King in general, but that book on writing horror,
yes,
is fantastic.
Agreed. He gives good advice. I mean, his books that he writes, it's like a noun, a verb, and 3,000 adjectives per sentence. That's why I'm just like, Jesus, get to the point, buddy. I know you're on meth or whatever the speed or whatever the hell you're doing right now, but my God, get to the point. Yeah, but he's pretty good author. I read that was a Tommy Knockers, I think, was the one I read that turned me off on him. People said that's the wrong one to start with, though.
And my God, that one fantasy book he wrote, The Eyes of the Dragon. Oh,
terrible!
My God, that was bad.
Really?
Remember I said it's hard to write a fantasy novel I don't like.
Yeah,
he managed it.
Yeah, was that good or that bad?
It was awful.
Oh, okay, all right.
It was terrible.
You ever want to write one, man?
I would like to, but I'm much more short story.
Okay.
I get to the point too quickly. I've tried.
Yeah.
And I always just I don't have the patience to write a novel. I don't think, but I've done short stories because I want to get to the end.
Yeah. Well, how about a novelization of old campaigns? Like, do you run long campaigns? Have you ever thought of I ran a 5-year campaign, novelized the whole thing?
Nope, never. I mean, I've run long campaigns, but I've never really thought about novelizing because you'd have to trim out so much nonsense.
Yeah,
and discursions and stuff. It was just, I don't know. It would seem like too much work to be worth it. I would start from scratch. Just go from a clean slate.
I look at it as an outline is in place. Like, I have an 8-year outline of a campaign I did with my brother. And it took 5 years in real time, but 8 years in game time. And it's like, I got this whole outline of what happened every month of every year for 8 years. I kind of have an outline of a book, a series of books here. I can fill in the gaps and change it around if I need to. I don't know. It's bucket list, long-term kind of thing, for writing purposes, But speaking of writing, so this was your first thing, but it wasn't your last. What was the next thing you wrote professionally, would you say?
The next thing I wrote was actually a book on paganism.
Oh, really?
Which you actually can still find on Lulu, I think, about how to do rituals to the household gods, and so that's still every once in a while.
I didn't think you go into.
Yeah, that was kind of a little diversion there in my publishing history. But in terms of gaming stuff, my first big thing that I did for sale was oh man, it was my first Kickstarter too. It was the Curious Book of Forgotten Lore.
Okay.
Which was my attempt to bring in more stuff for first edition based on what Gary had said he wanted to do. Right. It was the beginnings of Adventures Dark and Deep.
Yes.
And it was basically the new stuff, right? The new classes and some new monsters and new magic items and stuff. And I did that. I did a Kickstarter for it. It was very much of a learning experience.
Yeah. What did you learn from it? What was the biggest lessons you learned?
More on the technical ends of things, like how to actually put together a Kickstarter campaign on the website, how to use the software to lay out the books and stuff. How to be an art director, which was, it was much more the technical side of publishing. Having that first one, getting that first book out the door. And once I got that first one out the door, the rest were so much easier. So if somebody listening to me is thinking about it and is just intimidated by that whole process, because it can be intimidating, and there is a lot. There are a lot of wheels that you got to keep turning to get this out the door. But once you get it out the door, the next one will be an order of magnitude easier, because you will know, okay, yeah, I have to set up my Kickstarter ahead of time, to give them time to approve it. I need to get my editor lined up. I need to do this and this and this, and I need to have this software so I can export the file in the right format. It's all just a lot of little stuff. But once you do it, like, the next one is just like class. It's just so much easier.
So what is your process, Joe, from beginning to end? I mean, now that you've learned how to do it and all that, what software do you use? How do you start a new project? Take us through the whole process. As part of this whole video series I'm doing with everybody, one of the main reasons is for, number one, me to learn, because I want to do some of this stuff. And I figure if I want to learn, and I've been involved with all this scene for a long time, I know a lot of people. And it's a lot less intimidating because I know a lot of people who've done it, right? Like you guys and everybody in my group chat, right? The Tim Shorts and Rob Conley and Greg Chris, all these people have done it. So I can reach out to these people and say, hey, man, what do you do for this and that and the other thing? But there's so many people who, number one, don't know anybody, right? Who've done this. And number two, wouldn't know where to reach out to or understand it, well, even the beginnings of how to do something like this. So I'm hoping that other people could watch these videos and see, Joe's like me. I get it. We're the same, both Gen X, whatever. And I've been wanting to do this for a long time. He did it. I want to give it a shot. So what do you like? Take him through the process. Take as long as you want. We got 9-10 hours. We could do this tonight. So we're good.
Yeah. Who needs dinner? So first thing is I write the book.
Yeah.
And I just do it in Microsoft Word. I don't do a Kickstarter until I've actually finished writing the book. It's still going to need editing, and proofreading and stuff like that. But I don't want to write. I don't want to ask people for money until I actually have something that I can deliver to them, because I've seen so many Kickstarters just kind of, founder on the rocks, because, the person doing it wants to get paid for the time he spent writing.
Yes.
Right? To me, that is not what this is not how this works. Is, if I'm writing a book, I'm not paying myself for that. That will come later when I start selling copies of the book.
It's an investment up front. You're writing.
Right. Exactly. If I go to Kickstarter and I ask people for money, I'm going to have that in hand.
Yes.
And, be able to say, yes, it's this many pages and it's got this in it and it's done. And for a lot of people, that's very reassuring, because, a lot of Kickstarters go off the rails, but I just do it in Word, Microsoft Word. In fact, the bestiary, that 600-page bestiary I did, that's all laid out in Microsoft Word.
Yeah.
And I'm able to do that because I used to teach Microsoft Word.
Oh, okay.
And I used to teach Office and other software and everything. So I know how to make Word do a lot of things.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know how to make it do.
Yeah.
With like section breaks and, column differences and tables and stuff like that. There's a bit of a ramp up if you're going to get fancy. If you're not going to get fancy, then just do it as a Word document and call it a day. But once I've done that, then I'm going to start up my Kickstarter, and I'm going to you
have a Word document with text, but no art yet. No art.
Right. I have my Word document with text. I've got my Kickstarter set up in Kickstarter.com, right? So you put in the description and you upload some art, and because you can. For me, I just basically at first I commissioned a piece of art for the cover, knowing that I was going to need a cover.
Yeah.
And I paid the guy. I found an artist that I liked on Facebook. Approached him, get it done, no problem. And so you upload the cover and you put the blurb and you figure out what the goals are going to be and stuff like that. For Kickstarters, I've really gotten away from stretch goals. I don't like stretch goals, and it seems gimmicky. The only time I will do stretch goals on my own stuff is when it's a stretch goal that doesn't cost any more money.
Yeah.
So, for example, when I first did the bestiary, there was a special goal, a special tier that you could subscribe to, and it was more money, but you would get your face in the art of one of the monsters. And I did that knowing that it wasn't going to cost me anything extra, because I'm going to have to pay an artist to make that art anyway.
Gotcha.
So, why not just say to the artist, "Oh, and put this guy in
there somewhere." The victim being eaten by the whatever the hell. Yeah.
Exactly. You know, so you know, or something that's purely digital that doesn't take any investment. Like for my Cthulhu books, you know, I did a thing where everybody got a Miskatonic University,
Excellent book.
Just you know, diploma kind of thing, or something like that. You know, but it's just you know, just me sending out PDFs to people. That doesn't cost anything. But when you have these things that are, you know, doing, oh, if we raise this much money, we're going to get dice, and if we raise this much money, we're going to give you a T-shirt or pens or whatever. You know, you're just because you're raising that much money doesn't necessarily mean that the economics mean you can then afford to spend all that extra money on extraneous stuff. So I'm very conservative economically when it comes to that kind of thing.
And you're still here. A lot of people aren't, you know,
because I'm very cautious when it comes to these things. And you know, and one thing I did I did it originally, and I swore I'd never do it again, and then I did it again, and now I'm swearing I'm never going to do it again.
What's that?
That's signing books.
Oh.
And the reason is because if I sign the books, then I have to mail them. Which means I have to pack them. I have to figure out the postage. I have to part them to the post office. I have to fill out customs forms. I don't know if you saw, I posted on social media when I got my my books for the Mad Archmage. There were dozens of boxes of books just stacked outside my front door. I mean, it took me hours just to get them inside.
And that book,
it took me,
that's no joke, that book. I mean, that book is a beast. Look at the size of it. Look at how thick this freaking, look at this. I got fat fingers. This is a big ass book, you know? You can look at like this, it can stop bullets, this book.
But, you know, and it was a complete pain to do that. You know, I get it. You know, they liked it. It was, you know, it's a 10th anniversary thing. It was a special thing. Okay, fine. But man, it is a pain to do that just because of the physical postage and shipping. I still have I still have big things of bubble wrap here. I don't want this. I still got 12 books in my dining room from people who backed the thing and then just disappeared.
Jesus.
So yeah. But anyway, so I've got my Word document. I've got my thing set up. And I launched it. Now, I had the advantage starting out that I had been doing my blog for 8 or 9 years. So I already had a bunch of people who knew me and liked me and were kind of following me. And, you know, I had been doing free downloads and, you know, making these big articles and stuff, you know, so I had an audience already. So I had that advantage built in. And part of the way I do that is I try to actually contribute to whatever community I'm in. So if I'm in some Facebook group, I try not to just spam it with, you know, hey, I've got a Kickstarter now, because then it seems like you're just coming in, swooping in, asking for support, and then leaving and not doing it. But I'll, you know, it's hard to do it on everything, but I try to make substantive comments or post something, you know, that means something. You know, I not only in groups, but in my regular social, you know, my regular Facebook page or X or Blue Sky or MeWe or whatever. You know, I try to do stuff that's fun and engaging, and you know, hey, if you're, you know, people like if you're my age, you'll remember this or whatever. You know, try to be, you know, actually engage with people,
a human being rather than just an advertiser person.
Right, exactly. You know, and I think that really helps people connect with you and be more willing to support you financially for something like this. But when you're doing it, it really is an art to figuring out how much money you need to raise. And it's going to be very different depending on your circumstances, because my business model is very specific, because my business model is all based on print on demand. I don't want to have a storage locker somewhere filled with boxes.
I don't blame you. It's insanely expensive.
I have a couple of boxes of books that I take to conventions, and that's it. And by the end of the year, they're usually all gone. So, you know, I don't have to report any inventory to the IRS. You know, I don't have to do any of that nonsense, because I don't have an inventory. I don't maintain an inventory for very long at all.
So you said an LLC, Joe? I mean, BRW Games, LLC?
It's an LLC. Just because, you know,
tax purposes.
It's just, best practice.
Yes.
I want to have some protection if something happens.
Yeah.
And so to figuring out what kind of money you need to raise, you got to not only figure in the that Kickstarter takes out, but you also have to worry about how much is the art going to cost.
Yep.
And at first, that's really hard to figure out, because at that point, when I did my very, very first book, I didn't really have a lot of artists that I knew.
Yeah.
Now I have dozens of artists that I've used on previous projects, and I know what their pay scales are like.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very easy for me to guesstimate how much I'm going to spend on art.
Is that the biggest expense, art, Joe?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The art is the base expense, followed by the editing.
Okay. Really, editing is that interesting? Interesting. I didn't realize art editing would be that close.
But it's the thing is, I don't really have any other expenses.
Yeah.
Because it's all print on demand.
Yeah.
I'm not actually paying to publish it, right? I'm not paying for paper and ink and presses and stuff. What I do is, what I've now started to do is, I will, you back me, we're successful, it's ready to roll. You'll get a link, and you click the link and you'll buy it at cost.
Yes.
And that does a couple of things, because I used to do it where I would just send out your books, right?
Yeah.
I would, because you can talk to DriveThruRPG and say, I want to do a Kickstarter fulfillment, and they'll, there's a little bit of a lead time in there, but you upload them a file and they will send out all your books for you.
Okay.
But that still is going to cost, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to pay for the cost of the thing. So you have to factor that into what you're raising up front. And another problem with that is the postage. Because when I did my very first one, there were literally places that I was mailing books to, like Brazil or Australia, where I could have just sent the backer a check, because I was losing money.
Jesus.
I could have just said, you know what? I will give you $10 over and above what you gave me.
Yeah.
And I will lose less money.
Call it even.
Right. It was crazy, and I had no idea. Plus, postage rates change. Like right now we've got the tariff thing happening. So there's all kinds of factors that you don't know a year, 9 months, 6 months in advance what could happen, and that can really clobber you. I've seen some Kickstarters where they raise $1 million, and then postage rates go up, and they're screwed. And they can't get the stuff out to their backers.
I worry about Kelsey. Look, she just raised what, 2.5 or something like that. She got $200 million in his latest Kickstarter for Kelsey Dion, right? Tariffs and bullshit. I mean, Jesus Christ! I was like, if I were her, just cancel the goddamn thing until we figure out what the hell's going on. But you got more balls than me.
but that's another reason I do print on demand, is because tariffs don't impact me at all, because I'm not shipping anything over in a container from China, so I am immune to that. And DriveThruRPG, they have printers here in the US, they have printers in Europe, they have printers, they have places all around the world. So it's actually friendlier to do it that way. And this way, if the price of the printing goes up, or if the price of postage goes up, it's not going to prevent me from fulfilling my obligation to the backers.
Yeah,
it's a way of making
a hit, though, right?
Well, they'll have to pay a little bit more than they had originally expected to.
Yeah.
But on the whole, at least they're getting their book.
Yeah.
I say, this is an approximation. It might change at the very, by the time we're done, it might change, but it's in the ballpark. It never changes so dramatically. It's not like it's going to double in price.
Yeah.
Might be another $1 or something.
Yeah.
But it's just. It's a way of making sure that I'm not risking nobody getting their books.
So in other words, let's say hypothetical numbers. You put out a book, right? And you charge $50 if you back this, and you get the book and it's going to be printed on demand through DriveThru, right? So they back for $50, and you're assuming that it's going to cost the printing on DriveThru would be $25. You're making $25 on profit, right? And then they pay the shipping and handling when they buy it, right? For their own.
They're paying the printing and the shipping and the handling. So they're paying the at cost.
The at cost. Okay.
Right. So they're paying for the printing and the shipping.
Okay. So where's your profit coming in then?
My profit's coming in because they're giving me money, as part of the Kickstarter. I'm getting, say, $50 from them.
Yep.
They're paying 25 to drive through. I'm still keeping the $50.
You're keeping the 50. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
But I'm using the 50 to pay for the art.
Yes.
So,
Okay.
it's really the same. It's just a question of who pays what money at what stage.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So instead of me paying the $25 for the printing and the shipping, they're paying the $25 for the printing and the shipping. And that way, if their address changes,
Mm-hmm.
if something happens like that, they can deal with that. They don't have to get in touch with me and say, "Hey, I just moved. Can you send it to a different address?" I'm like, "No, I can't. I just uploaded it." So, it's all that is in their hands, which are the safest hands.
So you keep the whole 50. And then when it comes to printing and shipping on drive-through, they're paying 20, 10, 15, 25, whatever the hell it may be, right?
Exactly.
And
But I'm using the 50 to pay for the art and the editing.
Okay. And how about, is any of that 50 going towards any of the costs that they are buying for the book? In other words, if the book is going to cost printing and shipping would be $25, is any of the 50 they gave you going towards that to offset it? No.
Nope.
So
they're paying the at cost.
At cost. Okay. Well, that's good. That's good. I thought that see, this is my understanding. This is why it's interesting, because my understanding was that when they gave you 50, you would put 25 towards the printing and they paid shipping and handling.
Yeah, no, that's
interesting.
I mean, you could, I guess you could do it that way, but then I'd have to get in touch with each one of them, tell them what the shipping is.
Yeah.
Right. And that's just a logistical nightmare.
Yeah.
This way, they get an email, click this link, boom, they order it.
Okay.
And they're ordering it at cost. So it's just, there is a drawback, and that is some Kickstarter backers forget to do that. They forget.
Oh,
they forget that there's not just going to be a book showing up on their doorstep by magic.
Yeah.
They forget that they have to do a thing.
Yes.
And sometimes I hear from people like a year or two later saying, "Oh, I never got my book."
Happened to me. I was a couple months late on the book, because every couple months I go through all my Kickstarters. I figure out, what did I order? What did I get? Where is it at? What stage? I have this whole spreadsheet of shit for Kickstarters. And I'm like, what the hell is Joe's book? And you do the search in your emails, you do the search on Kickstarter, and you're like, oh shit, I never clicked the link. Then I reached out to you, was dead or something, and I'm like, hey, give me another link, and he did.
Yeah, they go bad after a while. Yeah.
So it worked out. All right. So you what do you lay out the books in? What software do you use? Not Word, obviously, nowadays.
Oh,
right?
I use Word.
Still? This isn't Word. This isn't Word?
That is Word.
Get the fuck.
The cover isn't. The cover isn't, but yeah, the interior is a Word file that I just export to PDF.
Holy shit. That's impressive, man. Because I know that if you drop a picture in Word, like the entire, if you don't know what you're doing, it completely skews up 300 pages of shit that you just did. So that's impressive.
But remember what I said. I used to teach Word. So
damn. I'm trying to learn like desktop publishing software here. Maybe I should just learn Word.
If you can, it's great because it saves you a step. And there's a few things that Word doesn't do that a true desktop publishing thing can.
Yeah.
But those are things I don't need anyway.
Yeah.
So, my interiors are very simple. I've got the 2 columns.
Yes.
I've got, sometimes I've got tables that span 2 columns. That's very easy to take care of with, with the software. It's, you put in a break.
Yeah.
Put in your thing, put in another break, keep going. It's once you get the hang of it, there's nothing to it.
Interesting.
Now the covers are done in Adobe PDF because I have PDF Pro.
Okay.
And basically what happens is once you get your final word count, the final page count, you go on to DriveThruRPG, you click a button, they send you a template because everything has to be exactly in a certain place.
Yep.
And you just do that, and I do it in Adobe Pro, Acrobat Pro, because I know that it's going to send it in the right format.
Okay.
Because if you use some of these free knockoffs, they say they're doing it in a particular format, but when you upload it, it kicks out an error because they're not.
Okay.
So this is one time when actually getting the real software is necessary.
Okay. And do you have subscribed to any of those, like the Adobe Suite and all that stuff, or
no? Because I still have Adobe Acrobat Pro, which was the last one they did before they switched to the thing. And every time I get a new computer, I have to go to their customer service, and they give me all kinds of static.
Yeah.
About it because I need the activation thing.
Yes.
And and they give me all kinds of pushback, and eventually they let me do it. So eventually they won't. Eventually they'll just say, no, you have to
the hell
pay
with you.
everything.
Yeah.
But if that happens, I still have the old computer.
Yeah. That's cool, man. Looks like you just got a new member, Joe, at Bugbear level. Russell Stone is a new Bugbear member.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, cool. Excellent. And again, guys, anybody's watching me, go to Joe's channel, subscribe over there. It looks like we got 29 on my channel, 27 on your channel, 39 on X. We got somebody on Rumble over there, none on Facebook. I don't know why I even bother with Facebook anymore. And what have we got going on Twitch? We have how many on Twitch watching? 4 people watching on Twitch, it looks like. So good deal. Yeah, we got a good wide spread here. We're reaching out to a lot of people. So yeah. All right, so you do it in Word, you put it up there. I didn't realize that. I thought that some of this money you made off of the Kickstarter had to get paid to drive through to alleviate the costs of the purchase. I did not know that. You
can do it that way.
Yeah.
If you want, but it's an unnecessarily complex.
I can see that. Yeah, I can see that makes things a lot easier. I mean, this is if I'm having these assumptions, I'm sure other people are. So this I'm sure it's helpful, but not just for me. This is good. All right, so you do everything print on demand, which alleviates a lot of costs. I was talking to a couple of publishers, one we know in particular who shows up at a lot of Steam conventions, and he had told me that he pays ridiculous amounts of money for storage of his book.
Exactly.
I'm like, why? Why would you do that? I think Venger had the same problem.
Stellar Steven, you can buy my books at Drive-Thru RPG. Just search for BRW Games.
Mm-hmm. BRW Games. What does that stand for, Joe? I was wondering. I don't know what the hell it means.
I never tell people unless they ask me live at a con.
All right. Next time we're at a con.
That's just a thing.
All right. Good to know.
Got to maintain the mystery.
Gotta be good there. Good to know. So the next con we're going to is going to be up there in upstate New York, right? It is
Central New York. Yeah, you can ask me that.
Central New York RPG Con. It's the very first con that they're putting on. I rhymed. Look at that. Goddamn, I'm a poet. Very first con they're putting on, and it should be a fun time. And I'm gonna pop my cherry with you, Joe, because I've never played a war game, and I signed up for yours.
Excellent.
Never played one.
My miniatures game. Yeah.
Yeah. It should be a fun time. This is the Battle of Emery Meadows, right?
This is the big battle that leads up to Temple of Elemental Evil.
Yes. I'm looking forward to that.
Prince Thrommel is there, and
really
certain, and yeah.
Oh, that's cool, man. That's very cool.
Yeah.
It's very cool. I'm looking forward to it. I've never played in one before, so I've always I played Axis and Allies, and it's like little things like that, but I never played an actual war game with the miniatures and all that.
I wanted to do something that plays like a regular medieval miniatures war game. Yeah. I go to Historicon every year.
Okay.
It's the one con I go to that's like my vacation. And it's just all weekend is historical minis. And some of them, the scales differ or whatever, but it's all just these big tables full of hundreds of miniatures. And that's what I wanted to do.
Okay. All right. That's cool, man. That's cool. All right. So back to the Kickstarters. Making money.
To the Kickstarter. So you were saying people are spending a ton of money on storage, right?
Yeah. It's insane. It's an insane amount of, hundreds of dollars a month to store books that you hopefully sell fast. And if you sell them fast, what the hell you need storage for? It seems to me that print on demand is the way to go.
That is exactly why I did it this way, because like I say, I have a couple of boxes in a closet.
Yeah.
That, but that's it. And I don't want to have to go to the post office times every week. I don't want to have to fill out a customs form. If somebody from Canada or whatever happens to buy one of my books, I want somebody else to do that. I don't want to have to collect sales tax. Somebody else is going to do that.
Okay. Interesting.
All that stuff. The only time I have to worry about sales tax is when I do a show.
Okay, so that's the business side of things. What did you need to learn, business side of things? I mean, I don't know if you had any experience in running businesses before, if this was the first time. So what did you need to know from the business perspective, not just the publishing end of it?
Everything.
Really?
I mean, figuring out which forms you have to fill out online to start a business, and then in order to do this, you would need to get this from this agency. You got to get a tax ID number, and then you can go to the bank, and then and you got to get you do this at the state, you do this at the county, you do this at the federal, all that. It's. I mean, I know it now.
Yeah.
But and I'm sure there are tutorials out there on how to do it easily, but it's not hard to do. But it's hard to figure out what you need to do in what order.
what do you need to do, and in what order? I mean, in brief, what would you
First, you have to, if you're doing an LLC like mine,
mm-hmm.
you go online on the state.
Now, I'm just going to step and shut this window because it's killing me now. I'll be right back. Keep talking. I'm here.
Okay, so there you start on the state level, and you fill out a form online. At least in New Jersey, you do, and you can form an LLC that way. Then you go to the federal, and you get a tax ID number, an EIN, an employer identification number. And then you have to, what was the other thing you have to do? Because you needed those two things, your certificate of formation and the EIN, and then you can go to the bank and set up a bank account. And once you have all those things in place, you can actually do a thing. But if you're going to be going to shows, you also need to get from the state, you need to get a certificate that says you're allowed to collect income tax, sales tax. So
do you need one from each state that you're at, though, or just the?
You're supposed to go. If I go to a show in Wisconsin, or Pennsylvania, and I'm selling stuff and I'm collecting sales tax, I need to go to the state taxes, whatever the state tax department is,
mm-hmm.
and sign up with them, and open a thing. And sometimes it's not free, and sometimes you have to, and you have to submit a report sometimes every quarter, sometimes every year. It's a big hassle if you're crossing state line. If you're selling anything in person, that's what you're supposed to do.
Wow,
that's one of the biggest hurdles.
Supposed to do. Is that they bust your chops, or is it you better do it or else you're screwed, or is it like they don't look into it or whatever, no big deal?
It depends really. I actually went to a Star Trek convention where they went through the dealer's room. The state tax people of I think it was Maryland. They actually went in the dealer's room, and they asked to see everybody's sales and use tax certificate.
Jesus.
And they shut down probably 3/4 of the place.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Holy shit. I did not know that. That's
the only time I've ever seen it happen, but when it happens.
Interesting question for you there. It is a timely question. I usually don't jump into the questions here, but it's as timely as to what we're talking about, though. So how much of your income comes from in-person sales as opposed to print on demand through drive-through?
Well, it'll depend on how many shows I'm doing. Like this year, I'm not vending at a lot of shows. So it's, let's see. At a typical show, I'll make anywhere between I'll make a profit of anywhere between $500 and $1,500. Sometimes if it's a big show like GaryCon, I'll make a lot more.
Yeah.
And that's net profit.
Okay. So that pays your costs and everything else, and that's good.
That's after all my meals and hotel and everything.
Very good.
But I've also had some shows where I sold next to nothing and lost money. I don't go back to those shows.
Yeah.
Because for me, well, no, it's an important point because some companies I've talked to them about this. They go to shows because they think they need visibility. They need to be seen.
Okay.
Even though they lose thousands of dollars every show. I am not that. My convention sales are one of my revenue streams. And if I'm not making money at a show, I don't go back to that show.
Okay. All right.
So,
that makes sense.
I can't. I'm not big enough to take a couple $1,000 hit to go to some gaming convention in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. No, that's really. I remember Raji when I was my first time and only time in North Texas a couple of years ago. It was his first time.
That's the only time I've been there too. Yeah.
Yeah, he said he made a fortune. You drove, you're a maniac. You drove all the way to freaking down there from Jersey. Like Jesus.
I had all my stuff. Well, and look at what happened. Raggy shipped all of his stuff.
Yeah.
And I had to take that box full of his books home with me.
That's right.
To give it to the guys in Connecticut.
Yeah. That's right. I remember that. But he said he made more money there than he did at Gen Con.
Oh, I did. When I went there that one year, I made a ton of money.
Yeah.
And I made it all on the first day.
Yeah.
Everything was on Thursday, and it was dead the rest of the con. I could have been playing games all weekend long.
Interesting. I wonder why.
I don't know, but I've never seen a con like that. There wasn't even a big rush at the end. Everything was Thursday. It was the weirdest. But I made $1 gazillion.
I brought extra money, and I paid for an extra bag, even though I only brought one bag, because I knew I'd have, and I packed a bag in my bag to fill with books that I'd be bringing back. So I paid the airplane for an extra bag, and I have just unloaded. I mean, Raji had a box of books there that somebody had from several years ago from another con or something like that he got delivered there. And he says, there's a lot of shit I don't even have anymore. I don't even sell anymore. So, yeah. And me and Bad Mike were like, oh, yeah, just where? Because I brought extra money. And we're just, we're like, piranha, like, and all the stuff there, Yeah, it was a good show. It was good. But I spent it up front, and then I didn't buy much after I did my first initial pass that first day. You're right. Because I was like, I hit a pass. I did a pass. I hit everybody. I bought everything I wanted to buy, and that was it, And
I think it's because at that particular con, it's a really serious old school con.
Yeah.
And people are taking off from work to be there, and they're coming Thursday and they're already revved up.
Yes. Yeah. It's a great con. I'm going to go back, not this year, but are you going to go back? Have you gone back?
I want to go. I wanted to go back this year, and then I screwed it up and didn't get my thing in on time. So
okay.
We'll have to see if I can try it next year. And the reason I drive is because it's actually cheaper for me to drive and stay in a hotel in Tennessee on the way, because it's a 2-day drive for me.
Yeah.
It's actually cheaper for me to do that than it is to ship my books there and back.
I guess that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense as a vendor.
It's the same kind of thing like you were talking about with the storage. It's like I'm going to minimize my costs wherever I can because I need to make money.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. So what else did you have to learn? So you had the process starting up your business and getting your tax ID number, setting the bank accounts up, registering in each state that you sell books at a con or whatever. Then what?
Yeah, if you're selling them in person, that's another great thing about doing everything POD.
Yeah,
is Drive-Thru RPG handles all the sales tax.
Okay.
I don't, and they handle all the shipping, and they handle all of the customs forms and all that junk. I just get a check every month.
You get a check at the end of the month. That's fantastic.
Right. It's amazing. Like when I'm at a convention, I'm getting emails, sales notifications. So I'm making money there while I'm making money at a con.
Dude, that's the greatest shit ever right there, man. Can you beat that?
It really is. I mean, obviously it goes up and down. When I come out with a new book, it usually tails, and a lot of my older books will also spike when I come out with a new one because people will buy like a bunch at once.
Makes sense.
But I'm getting money every month from stuff that I wrote years ago.
Do you find a need to have a definite publication schedule? Like I need to put out a product every X amount of months, and like maybe a module every 4 months or a book every year or something like that in order to keep it rolling.
I tried that. Like I was doing a module every 3 months.
Yeah, I remember that.
I was not happy with the quality.
Okay.
So I stopped doing it.
Okay.
They weren't good enough.
Yeah.
Because I was rushing.
Yes.
So now I don't have a set schedule. I don't even say to myself, oh, what's my big book going to be this year? What's my Kickstarter this year?
Yeah.
If I have something ready, I'll get it out. If not, I just won't sell any. I won't have a new thing that year.
Okay.
Right now, I'm working on 3 books all at the same time, and I don't know which one's going to come out first.
Yeah.
I don't know which one inspiration is going to lead me to finish.
Now, what's your work? I guess cycle work. Like you get up in the morning. How do you? What do you do? Are you like I got to start writing at 10 o'clock in the morning or 10 o'clock at night?
I have a full-time job. I have a separate full-time job.
Okay.
So from 8 to 4, I'm a IT project manager.
Okay.
And being a project manager is actually very helpful for doing Kickstarters.
I can see that. Yeah, keeping all the details.
Very easy to get everything all laid out. I have Gantt charts. I have schedules. I know what's going to happen when. Yep. So it's easy to be organized when that's what you do for a living. But after 4 o'clock, I will write for a few hours, and then I'll have some family time. I'll cook dinner. We'll watch TV, and then I'll come up and I'll write for another couple hours.
Wow! So you got like 4 or 5 hours every day of writing.
Call it, let's see, more like 3 to 4 hours.
3 to 4, okay. But every day, you got to do it. You got to keep doing it, keep going.
And then that also includes time to make my videos.
Okay, all right. And then how about the running the business portion? I'm sure some of that 3 or 4 hours is.
It's funny because I haven't really done. I mean, it's very self-guiding, right? Because I don't do a lot of advertising yet. Yeah. I want to, but I don't because I don't know much about it.
Yeah.
And there's really not much to do.
Yeah.
Other than the occasional report for the government.
Yeah.
You know, that's just a form you fill out online, maybe once a month or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, so that takes up almost no time. But it's funny you say that, because I am at the moment devoting a lot more time to the business side. Agile monk, yes, as a matter of fact, I am. I'm devoting a lot more work to the business side because I'm working on Plan B,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
I'm doing this because I see what the tariff thing has done to other companies,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it doesn't impact me at all,
Yeah.
but I realize that if something did happen to disrupt Drive-Through RPG, for
Yeah.
example,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm screwed.
Yeah. Then you got
I
no
am
revenue coming in.
I got nothing.
Yeah.
So what I'm doing is I'm setting up an alternate system that I can just flip the switch if
Really?
something happens.
An alternate print
Um,
on demand system? You talked about that a long time ago, that we need a backup to drive through. The
well,
OSR needs one. I remember that.
yeah, no, this is this is Luna. I'm just I'm basically setting up to mirror Drive-Through RPG on Lulu.
Interesting. So
So that
Lulu is
way,
the
if something
backup.
happens, yeah, Lulu is going to be my backup.
Okay.
Some people have been talking about, and somebody actually started it up. It was only PDFs, but they were talking about going into print on demand. I haven't heard anything from them since. There is another one out there
Okay.
that is supposed to be a drive-through competitor, but I haven't really heard much from them. But yeah, I'm starting to set up all my titles on Lulu as a plan B.
That's good. That's a good plan.
And as part of this, I'm also going to be doing a lot more with advertising. Um, I feel like that's something I've really neglected on the business side,
Yeah.
and I'm looking into, doing Facebook ads and different things like that
Okay.
to see if I can start driving some more traffic to my online store.
I tell you, when Kelsey was doing the first Shadow Dark thing, but the OGL shit hit, I didn't know what the hell it was. I'd not known anything about her products or anything like that. But all my feeds, all my social media feeds had Shadow Dark. And I remember texting my little group chat with Eric and Tim and all these guys, like, what the fuck is Shadow Dark? Why is this appearing everywhere I look? The OGL hit. Then I'm like, everybody wants to buy. What the hell is it? And then they're all researching it, filling it in. But because it was marketed well, I guess Kelsey's wife is in sales and advertising. She's the business side of it, right?
Mhm.
And Kelsey's the creative end. So it was a perfect combination there. But I do see some Kickstarters popping up on Facebook or Instagram or things like that. And I'm like, wow, I wonder if that's profitable. And I know it worked for her because it was everywhere, right? But yeah, that's the thing. I know that one of my followers, Erudite DM, he's in all the, I don't know if he's here now, but Erudite, say hi, you're there. He's new into Tim's game too. On the Monday night games when I dropped out, he took my place. So he's playing in a game and all that. He's in advertising. You may want to reach out to him, or Erudite reach out to Joe if you want any advice. But his name is Erudite, Erudite DM. So he's a good guy. He's a professional in advertising, about our age, so he's been around the block. So yeah. So
Been around the block, dragged on the back of an ice cream truck.
Yeah. Kelsey did hit it right at the perfect time. She had the perfect sales pitch. She's a sweetheart, and the OGL hit the fan, right? So yeah. I mean, it was perfect. So tell me about Adventures Dark and Deep, Joe. All right. So we got the advertising over, or the business side overview. I think the good advice there, and reach out to Joe. I mean, he's a cool dude. You ever see him at a convention? Buy him a beer. Reach out, ask questions. I'm sure.
I'm always happy to help people who want to get into this kind of thing. Happy to. I get way too many people asking me to actually read their stuff and give them a critique.
Yeah,
I'm not quite there yet, but if you just have a question about setting up a Kickstarter or something, I'm happy to help.
Yeah. Joey's always been cool with me, so I'm volunteering him, but I know him, so I know he'd be cool with that. So yeah.
So Adventures Dark and Deep.
Yes. How did that? What did this start as? I know what it is, but you tell them what it is.
Okay, so Adventures Dark and Deep started as a blog post on my blog, greyhawkgrognard.com. Years and years and years ago, I did an article about a couple of articles that Gary Gygax wrote in Dragon Magazine in the 80s, where he said, this is the direction that the game is going to go. And he said, oh, we're going to make these changes, and we want to reorganize it this way, and we're going to have these new classes. He was basically giving a thumbnail outline of where he wanted to take AD&D in these articles. And then obviously, he got picked out a TSR and never got to do it. And of course, they went in a completely different direction with second edition.
Yep.
So I wrote an article about this on my blog, and I went through all the different things, and had a little speculation here and there. And in the comments, people kept asking me, "So when are you going to write it?
Nice.
When are you going to do this?"
Yeah.
And enough people did that I said, "Sure, I'll do this." And that was the genesis of it.
Yeah.
What I did was I started to do some research, and I went on. Gary used to do all those Q&As online on Dragonfoot and a bunch of different other places.
Yep.
I went through every single one, and I extracted anything that had to do with his plans for that second edition.
Jesus.
So I still have the file of everything he ever said on those Q&As. Plus, I had what was in Dragon Magazine.
Jesus.
And then I started to look at his other game.
And you notice Joe Bloch is wearing pants, unlike Garrick, who wears the tighty whities and shocks us all when he stands up. So thank you, Joe, for wearing pants.
Dangerous Journeys.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Because this was his thing. And
very complicated game. He got really fucking complicated.
Really, yeah.
Full Gygax mode.
But it has a lot of stuff. Because remember, that's the one that they sued him over.
Yes,
because they said it was too much like D&D.
Yeah.
And, it uses percentiles instead of D20s and stuff like that. But there's enough in there that I was able to reverse engineer some of the material back into AD&D terms.
Okay.
So, like the Jester class, all right? There's one of the new classes in Adventures Dark and Deep is called the Jester. And they have a skill in Dangerous Journeys that's like buffoonery, I think. And when you look at the buffoonery skill, you can kind of see where he might have been taking inspiration from maybe his notes for D&D.
Okay.
So for some of these things, I use Dangerous Journeys as inspiration on how to approach things in Adventures Dark and Deep.
Gotcha. Okay.
So between all the Q&As, and a lot of people asked him over the years about this stuff. So there was a lot of material there. There was a lot of material in Dragon, and then there was a lot of material I was able to glean out of Dangerous Journeys. So it was very much of a research project, as much as it was, a design project.
And Agile Monk is asking about Legendary Adventures. Did you dive into that too?
I did not.
Okay.
I did not. Because this had all the mechanical stuff. And I don't know much about Legendary Adventures, but I gathered it was less crunchy.
Okay.
So, but no, I never actually looked into Legendary Adventures. I probably should have. So it was, so I did all this research, and then I started with the first edition rules. I kind of restated them like Osric.
Yeah.
And then I started adding in and changing things based on all my notes.
Okay.
And that's what happened. That was how I wrote Adventures Dark and Deep.
Okay.
Research, then going to the original and changing it based on the research.
Now, what did you use as the license for that? The old D20 one?
Right. Originally, everything was published under the OGL.
The OGL?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Remember, this was before the dark times when they would send Pinkertons out after.
Yeah.
So, back when the OGL actually meant something.
Yeah.
So
the D20 open game license and all that, you just cite it in the back of the book and you're good to go, right? Basically, yeah.
Right. Don't use the word mind flayer and a couple others. The list of forbidden monsters.
Beholder, right? Yeah.
So boom. So Beholder became Sphere of Many Eyes, and that kind of thing. And everybody did it.
Yeah.
To do that. So that's how it was originally done. And like I talked about earlier, my first Kickstarter was the Curious Volume of Forgotten Lore, which was basically just some of the new stuff that you could use as a supplement. If you were already playing D&D, you could take this book and just add on to it.
Okay.
So that was the genesis of Adventures Dark and Deep. And then I did the Player's Manual, which was a full contained book, and then I did a Bestiary and a Game Master's Toolkit. And then started to do other supplement stuff. The Cthulhu book, which a lot of people love.
Love that book. I've used it heavily in my old campaign. I imported it into my 5e campaign. That's how good it was. It was easy to convert. I mean, anybody's old school convert on the fly anyway, but it was easily converted, you know?
Yep. And the Wuja book and a bunch of other stuff. And you saw the you had the random generator.
Yeah.
That got republished as
I got to get the new one.
The Book of Lost Tables, which basically has all the encounter tables with all the monsters from all the books.
Yeah,
Plus, it's got random dungeons, random wildernesses. It's got all just random towns. It's got all kinds of random tables. That's all it is. It's inspiration. So basically, out of that core books came all the supplement stuff. So, but that's its genesis was that one blog post I made.
Something else, huh? That one little freaking thing, and it just blew the hell up. And here we are, a whole career out of it. I mean, I know you have another job and all that. If you had to, and this is more for, I'm not trying to get into finances or even numbers, but just for people who are out there, Joe is a very successful RPG publisher. He published to a niche, right? The OSR for the most part, but is a niche. You're not putting out 5e stuff, although a lot of it is usable for 5e. Joe, if you had to, could you live off this? And I'm just trying to set expectations so that people have a realistic expectation if they want to get into RPG publishing. Can you live off of RPG publishing?
Not at the moment. That's one reason I'm doing the plan B, and one reason I'm increasing my advertising.
Gotcha.
Because I do aspire to do that. I'm going to be retiring eventually. Is that better, Death Angel Shadow? I didn't realize I was mirrored.
Yeah. I had to flip mine around too at one point. Yeah.
But what was the question? Wait a minute.
Can you make a living off it? Yeah.
Right. No, I could not make a living right now, but I aspire to by the time I retire.
Gotcha.
So within a couple of years, hopefully, I will be making enough. If I made 3 times as much profit as I do now, I could do it.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I asked this question out to Pride, but I wanted people who are wanting to get into RPG publishing think it's a gold mine sometimes. You know what I mean? They see $1 million Kickstarters and they're thinking, oh, I'm going to do this and make a fortune. I could quit my day job and fuck you to the boss and all this shit. But I wanted people to have a realistic idea of what they're in for, because Joe's been doing it for 10 years and putting out good quality stuff. And he has a great selection of things already out there. He has a back catalog. And so you're not going to retire off you're not going to pull a Kelsey. Right, it's a rare thing. It's a very rare thing.
I aspire to, but it's not like
a better chance hitting the lotto.
But it's also it's fair to say that I've paid more than a couple of mortgage payments with this. It's definitely I'm not making enough to live off of it, but I'm also not just buying beer money.
Yeah, exactly. You're making good enough money to make it worth your time. Worth 4 or 5 hours a day sometimes, right? Weekends and traveling to cons. So if you're doing that, you're doing well. And that's what a lot of people aspire to, I think. Just a little extra. That's what I want to do. Just I'll have a pension and Social Security, but if I could get a little bit more, I won't have to cut back to quality of life. Right.
Well, that's how it started. It started as because I didn't start doing this for the money.
Yeah.
I started this because this is the game I wanted to play.
Yes.
In 1986, this is the game I wanted to play. Was AD&D with jesters and mountebanks and savants and mystics. This is and that's my motive.
Yeah.
I enjoy playing this game.
Yeah.
And I'm writing for myself, and I know that's not how you're supposed to do a business. But I write stuff that I like. And
that's the passion, Joe. The passion keeps you doing it, I think. You know what I mean? That's because Genesis, my idea, like I'm going to start publishing shit, was not only like looking forward to a little extra money in retirement, but I ran a 2nd edition campaign. I started with the old school guys. I was doing that for a few years, and I told them at the beginning, it's going to be 2nd edition by the book, right? And rules as written. And then I had 20 pages of house rules. And so they all bust my balls about it. But then they're like, I think who said it first? Well, why don't you just write your own fucking game? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, motherfucker, I will. Because, it was like one of those deals. I'm just going to write my own game the way I want it to be. And I'll take from wherever the hell I'll steal from everywhere and just make my own thing. And that'll be a fun time,
Well, that's,
throwing out some support there, Joe.
You are not alone. And that is why the term fantasy heartbreaker has come in.
Yeah.
Everybody does that.
Yeah.
And 99% of them you never hear of.
Yes, exactly. So I figure I'm gonna work at it, and I got a 5-year plan. I'll put something out in 5 years, but in the meantime, I'll put out little things to learn. Because, like I say, if I can learn along the way, module here, an adventure there, a zine there, I'll learn format, layout, Kickstarters. I'll learn the little things, that you're talking about, and then by the time I put out the big thing, I won't fuck it up. That's the goal. I just don't want to fuck it up. But,
and thank you, Agile Monk. I will, if you could reach out to me, that would be awesome. My email is my blog name at Gmail.
All right, excellent. And you had another question up here. I started for you. Where the hell was it? It was about wargaming. Holy crap! It's so far. Oh, sorry. There it is. Let me see. There it is. Can you, i.e., if not top secret, are you publishing your war game rules? Cheers.
Yes, I am eventually. Because I've been running it at cons, and it's been really popular. People who play it really like it. But every time I run it, I run into, I didn't address this situation, or maybe this could be simplified a little, or I need to adjust this here. So it's very much still in a beta playtest. But yes, the goal is to absolutely publish it. And when I do, my plan is I'm going to publish it with counters that are the same size as the miniature bases that I use at cons, so that you don't have to have 1,000 miniatures to play it.
Okay, that's cool.
And it'll be like print and play.
You had another question here, Joe. The Jester class. Do you know if Roger Moore borrowed Gygax's idea in Dragon 60? I don't know what that means.
I don't think so. I think that would have been too early because he wasn't even talking about it back then. Unless, who knows what they were talking about in the offices at TSR.
Yeah.
The timing doesn't seem to allow it. And knowing Roger Moore, he's a Jester class kind of guy.
Okay. So, I don't know who he is, but it says, I think this is the follow-up from the same guy. Should read for his version in DR60. I don't know what that means. Do you? Dragon 60?
Read for his version in Dragon, must be Dragon 60, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So this is coming from your channel. It says paired on this screen, Joe, so it's coming from your channel there. So that's all right. Yeah, so one of your peeps here. So, all right. So you got Adventures Dark and Deep out now, and then you had a recent...
I see another question here from the Zatron.
Okay, I missed it. Oh, there it is. How deeply entwined into the main rule books is the Cthulhu mythos stuff?
It isn't. There's really not a lot of Cthulhu stuff in the core rules. All the Cthulhu stuff is obviously in the Swords of Cthulhu book.
Yeah,
it's except unless you're counting like Everard's Black Tentacles, the spell, as being Cthulhu, but it's not really. And when I was doing the Cthulhu book, I actually came to realize just how sci-fi a lot of Lovecraft stuff is, as opposed to being fantasy. So
yeah. I mean, the whole thing from outer space and what was it, the old ones? My favorite Lovecraft story, and I get them all mixed up because I read them all at once one day or one weekend. I just kept blowing through them all. It was the one in Antarctica where the guy did a body transfer between these creatures, and these creatures switched bodies with him, and he lived for a while and as an archivist or something like that.
Right, the great race of Yith.
Yes, yeah. That was an amazing. I mean, there's always non-Euclidean geometry. I mean, it's just kind of mind-blowing shit. You know what I mean? It's just like really, really amazing stuff. I just in the style of writing, once you get used to the clunkiness of the old-fashioned style, you dive in. You just absorb it. It's really good.
I actually use that style in my writing. I try to at least echo the voice of people like Lovecraft and Gygax when I do my writing for my books.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like
don't talk down to your readers.
Yeah,
don't be afraid to use the big word.
I learned so many words from Gygax. I had to look up in a glossary in the back or an encyclopedia or whatever the hell. Yeah.
That's how a 12-year-old knows what milieu means.
Yeah. French, fuck's sake. You know what I mean? Yeah. We got another question here. 2 questions. How compatible is it with OSR products?
100%.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's because it's compatible with AD&D First Edition, which is pretty much compatible with everything. CCC, I don't know. That's a bit outre. But anything like Swords and Wizardry or Labyrinth Lord or Shadow Dark or any of those things, there shouldn't be any issues. Honestly,
if you picked up the Core Bestiary, his book, and again, this is a 3-finger width book. I just It's a beast. I don't know how many monsters are in here, Joe, but you have everything under the sun in here. I mean,
I believe there's over 900 monsters.
900 fucking monsters. It's insane, but it's all in the old AD&D format, you know? So there you go. So you know what I mean? It's like right there. You can import this. The good thing about the AD&D format is that you can scale it back for like old school essentials, right? But it's harder to scale up old school essentials for AD&D. So if you're only going to get one monster book for old school games, get Joe's. It has every fucking monster under the sun in there, and you can use it for any old school game. So you're good to go.
And yes, Death Angel Shadow, yes, Castles and Crusades as well. In fact, the skill system is this is funny because I actually had to remind them about this when I saw them at Page this year. The Troll Lords, when they were publishing Castle Zagig for the first time, they actually had a digital supplement that Gary wrote, which was a skill system where you spend XP to learn skills.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was just such a wonderful idea that took that kernel of the idea and I used it in Adventures Dark and Deep. Because they, it was they did it in the LGL, so it was fair game. But I obviously I changed it up and I actually made it a little more complicated and there's skill levels and stuff. But that kernel of the idea of you spend XP to learn skills, so you have the decision to make. Do I want to go up a level or do I want another skill level of such and such? I think that really adds something to the game when you're playing it on a long-term campaign. In fact, I use that as the basis for the Kung Fu system in my Swords of Wuxia book.
Oh, okay.
So you spend XP to learn styles of Kung Fu, and that's how you can have a magic user who knows Kung Fu or a thief who uses Kung Fu. It's not just a monk.
Yeah. That's cool. I know second edition had an alternative rules system in there where you could everything was purchasable by XP points. And I thought that was an interesting mechanic, but I think they failed at it the way they implemented it. But I thought the idea behind it was amazing. It really was. And yes, the Holy Mary, the core rulebook is 481 pages. Yes, it's a beast. It's a beast.
Well, part of it is because I had to increase the font size because I was finding it hard to read my own books.
Yeah, I agree, dude. I agree.
I'm getting older. I needed to. It's not a large print book, but it's just a little bit larger than it.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, I was
really eats up the pages.
I look at the old shit now. I'm like, fucking, where's my glasses? God damn it!
Just try to look at the original Castle, Chivalry and Sorcery.
Oh, I don't have that one.
Oh my god! Because when they did it, it was 4 normal 8.5 by 11 sheets that they shrunk down to fit on one page.
Oh, for fuck's sake!
Oh my god! Even when I was 15, it was hard to read.
Yeah, you need a magnifying glass. My grandfather's magnifying glass to see the thing there. Holy crap, man! All right, so we have your book, your Adventures Dark and Deep rule books. We got the second edition out now, but you're also well known, Joe. And I remember when you started this on your blog, you did like a level at a time for this baby, right? Tell where did this come from? Where did the genesis of this? Because I did get a question on my Discord. I threw out to my Discord server some questions and some various places, and one guy wanted to know about how does your Megadungeon compare to Jeff Talany and Gary Gygax's Troll Lord Games Castle Zagig. So I know there's a connection there too. So
well, that was actually the genesis of Castle Mad Archmage because they put out the one box set where you got the castle ruins and the storerooms.
Yep.
And then Gary passed away.
Yep.
And the widow Gygax took away the license and said that she was going to publish something.
Yeah.
So I waited.
You were pissed. I remember.
I waited and I waited and I waited and I got sick of effing waiting. So I just started to write my own thing, but the map that I did connected to all the staircases in the Troll Lord games, in the storerooms. So that if you wanted, by sheerest coincidence, all the stairways matched. And so you could use that to keep going. And eventually it took on a life of its own. And I like you were saying, I published a level every month on my blog, and just they were free downloads, free PDFs.
Yep.
And then once I got enough of it done, I actually wrote the top level and the castle and everything, and finished it up and decided to publish it. But the genesis was, again, I wanted to play this. This was the product I'd been waiting for since 1980.
You were raging on your blog back then about this. You know, I don't think you called her a bitch, but I think it was in the back of your head.
No. I would never do that.
No.
But no, in all seriousness, I hold her no ill will. I think she had a lot of people around her giving her bad advice.
Yeah. And she did me a solid, believe it or not. My little story with Gail Gygax was I was broke at the time, and I kept calling off Steve Chenault, emailing him, or, I think I made a phone call once. I said, dude, I can't afford your damn Zaggig right now, but I'm going to get some money soon. Please hold it. Hold me a copy. And then the license got pulled. And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they had to pulp them all.
Yeah, I was like, Steve, what the fuck? I can't have it. I can't, He says, so he reached out to Gail, and Gail said since he was holding it for me, she could sell it. I don't know if that's Gail saying that or Steve saying Gail said that. Whatever the case may be, I got it. So I got the very last copy ever sold officially.
And it was sudden too, right? It's like
it was.
It wasn't just like, oh, in 2 weeks we're going to have to do this. So get it. No, it was just boom. You can't get it. Where it's out. Mm-hmm. No more. They're all in the dumpster. So that was the genesis of it, and then I published my own. But in terms of how it compares, I mean, I can't compare my stuff to Gary's.
Yeah.
Gary's is going to be a gazillion times better than mine. I like mine. It's parts of it are a funhouse dungeon, parts of it are very plotted, parts of it have lots of political machinations with factions and stuff. So it supports a lot of different styles of play. And I think it compares favorably to stuff like Rapanathuk or some of the other Megadungeons that are out there. Yeah. But they're all different, so it's very difficult to compare them head to head. I like Rapanathuk. I like it a lot.
I've run it. I've run several things in Rapanathuk.
Yeah. It's just each one has a different feel. But I'm absolute. I went all in on the Kickstarter for Gary's. For the reissue or the extended issue of Vessel Zaggig. I went in for the the leather books and all the top of the line, whatever I could get.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll tell you what I think of their stuff. Is I'm willing to sink my own money into it.
Yep. No, that's good shit, man. That's a good shit. I have a story back. I ran the first time I ever ran yours. I had Zaggig and I had to print it out, and it was Tavis Allison. Remember him? He was involved with Axe, right? And so he and I would met up in New York City a few times. So Eric and I have been doing this New York City get together. It was me and Eric and Rachel for years, and then Tavis joined. And now this has become a big thing.
I've joined a couple times.
Yeah, you've got a few times, Professor Dungeon Master. Like it started with me and Eric and Rachel having beers and going to Complete Strategists, and now it's like a huge goddamn event. It's going to turn into a mini con someday. You just see it coming, Yeah, exactly. When Tavis came down, we're talking. I said, dude, we got to run this thing. And so your game was out, and basically he printed out copies. He gave me a copy, and we ran Zaggig and your game because they connected, right? At Falcon in Connecticut, which is a convention that lasted like a year or two. It just sort of went away. It was at the Polish Falcons Hall, so we called it Falcon, and it happened in the fall. It's FALC1, right? So me and Tavis played this. He ran a group, and I ran a group in the dungeons, and we jumped into your levels eventually. They got through there. They got into your levels, and at one point, we kept looking back at each other. Our backs were to each other. We kept looking back and say, where are you guys at? Where are you guys at? We happened to find that our groups were on the same level. Coincidentally, we didn't even maneuver them there. They just ended up in the same level. And so I'm like, oh, this is good. So we just had a convergence of the two groups, and they killed each other. They just went like fireballs in the hallways, and like one group survived. Whoever got the fireball off first won. That's really what it came down to. So it was a good time, man. It was a really good time. Yeah, it's a fun dungeon. It's a fun dungeon. So yeah.
Somebody asked about mapping. Somebody had a question about mapping. So the way I do my game, and I've been running it at cons for years, is I don't use northeast southwest. I use left, right, straight. And the reason I do that is because Castle Mad Archmage has elevator rooms and has teleporters and has shifting walls, and because I don't want them to assume that they know what direction they're moving in.
Yes.
So when you do that, this is why dwarves have those abilities to detect shifting stonework and new construction and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's specifically for Megadungeons.
Yep.
It's mechanically built into first edition, and and by doing that, it kind of forces them to pay more attention. I had groups. In fact, I just ran it um, at WizardCon,
Mm.
and they didn't bother to map. And
Wow.
they're just, and there were no, it wasn't Wizard. It was the one before it, Long Island. They didn't bother to map. They just were roaming around, and they had no idea how to get out.
I
just
I
completely.
played it at the last ShireCon with the one with the big stage. Remember, you're exhibiting on the stage, and we had your game running there, and I was running your game because I want to play in all the good GM games that were people I respect as GMs and writers and all that. So I finally got into your game there, and somebody was mapping, so I didn't pay attention because it's a one shot, right? I'm sure I'm not gonna live. So I'm like, someone else is mapping. I'm just gonna figure it out. But it got confusing. It really did get confused. We lost track of where the hell we were.
That's intentional. That's
yeah.
I call it breaking mappers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the joys you get as a DM is seeing their puzzled looks when they think there should be a passage somewhere and there isn't.
Yeah, yeah. Do you ever run things online on like Roll20? Because I mean, you got built-in mapping on there. Kind of takes away from the art of mapping your own dungeons.
That to me that's a drawback.
Yeah.
And I've tried it. I tried to run a game online, and I actively hate it. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the distraction of being online and having to do things,
Mm-hmm.
or I miss having the interaction of the social interaction around the table. I want to see people's faces at the table rolling real dice.
Yeah.
In front of me. I don't play online. I won't run online. I don't know what it is. I just actively hate it.
Jesus. Yeah, I do it because it's the way we can play. If we didn't do online, we wouldn't play. You know what I mean? So we're kind of like stuck with it. We did Roll20. We've been doing Roll20 since Eric about 12 years ago, whenever it first came out, and he got us into it. And start with the basic functionality, but I kind of like it, but it does take away from the mapping because you're just revealing as you go, and it's always there. So it's like, it's if I didn't do it online, I probably would hardly play except the conventions. So it's a happy medium for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I know a lot of my friends do it, and a ton of people do it. I get it. More power to you.
Yeah.
I won't do it. I've tried it and I don't like it, and that's it. And if I did do it, I wouldn't use any kind of fancy mapping and battle mats and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's another thing. I was looking at some of those alternatives, and it takes so much prep.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't run my game that way. I run a very improvisational game.
Yeah.
And I don't know where you're going to go. I don't know what to prep.
Mm-hmm.
And to have all that stuff, you have to have it all programmed in ahead of time, and the lighting
Uploaded
and the fog of war defined.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
That's not a I don't want to just read you a story.
Yeah. I always ask my players, all right, well, before the next game, where do you think you're going to go? Not to railroad your asses, but just so I can prep for it. Because I'll prep 10 hours for a 4-hour session. I mean, it's just it's what you have to do. So it's a strange thing. But
I don't prep for sessions. I prep for campaigns.
Mm.
It's almost like the West Marshes kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where I have a lot of material, and I always run Greyhawk, so I kind of have an advantage.
Yeah.
There, but I have I'll have a bunch of dungeons and a bunch of villages and stuff, and I'm well prepared for anything that they might do, and if they do something I haven't prepared for, I vamp. I just make it up. I improv. So that's a skill I think that really is lost on a lot of modern gamers.
I agree.
Because it's hard to do in 5e.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but you made things for 5e, right? But then you took it down because of the OGL disaster, right?
No. I made a couple of little things here and there for 5e and took those down, A, because they weren't selling, and B, as a kind of a protest. But then, lo and behold, they opened up Greyhawk and DM's Guild.
Oh, okay.
So I have 4 books up on DM's Guild.
Okay.
One is the campaign guide, which has no mechanics in it. So yeah, it's a 5e book, but it doesn't have any 5e in it.
All right.
It's all lore and maps and stuff. So that's that's great. I get to sell
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
There's the other 3 books: the Cleric's Guide, the Player's Guide, and the Orc's Guide. Well, the Player's Guide and the Cleric's Guide all came out of those free downloads I had on my blog, and
Okay.
I took them out, modernized them for the 2024 rules, and made books out of them. And
Okay.
then I did an orc book because I was very pissed off at the way they treated orcs in the new game, where they're not monsters
The
anymore.
Mexicans now, the Mexican orcs.
With the little gaucho hats.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so yeah, so that was very much of a reaction book. And I am so pissed off because somebody got their orc book out literally a day before mine was ready.
Oh, bastards!
Just literally a day ahead of me. So
Suckers.
that really burned me.
Speaking of orcs, dude, Agile Monk just gifted 5 of your members of your channel orc membership gifts.
Oh wow!
So,
Thank you so much.
Stellar Steven, Adam Pender, Andrew Kostick, Unshelled Pity, and Headless Bourgeoisie received a orc membership level for your channel. And since we're doing that once a month, Joe, I don't know if you realize this. Eric told me about this recently. I did not know we could do this. But on the first of the month, you're able to gift memberships to your own channel members.
Really?
Yeah. So if you go to your channel, right, watch your stream on your channel right now, you can gift memberships. If you click the little $sign in the bottom, right, and it doesn't cost you any money. Click the little $sign, click on membership gifting, and then it says, I have 10 memberships left to give. I could send 5 now, and I'm going to do that right now. So I just gifted 5 memberships. And I'm going to do it again and gift the other 5. So here's 10 people are getting memberships to my channel at the $3 level, I think it is.
Cool. Is that only? Yeah. Okay, so that you can do that anytime.
You can do it once a month at the first of the month in the last 30 days. So I just gifted, let's see. So Wibzabzdindin, the Ultra American TTRPGer, Rob Conley. Rob, you're not a member, motherfucker. You should be a member. Tac and Finn Fish, Lord Mateus, Great Old Ones, Penzez A. Moi, Driving in Dragons, and The Reluctant Hireling all just became adventurer level members of my channel. And that wears off after 30 days, and there's no cost to you guys. And what it entitles you to, for me at least, is I release videos to members only about a day ahead of everybody else. So if you're a member of my channel, you'll see that video like a day before everybody. All right. So yeah, so you're good to go. You guys can, and then it expires, or you can resume the membership whatever level you want. So
yeah, I had no idea, because on mine, folks get the videos 2 weeks ahead.
Oh yeah, because you do the Patreon, right?
Well, I do the Patreon, but I also have memberships on the thing, and they're the same.
Yeah.
I upload them to one place and the other.
Yep.
But you get to see the videos twice 2 weeks ahead of time, and sometimes I will do exclusive content just for the members.
Yeah.
Not as much as I should, but I do it sometimes.
Yeah. And Death Angel says, I'm going to enable membership chats. At some point, Death Angels, I will be, once I had this thing, when I hit 50 members, 50 paid members that are like not the gifted ones, but 50 actual members, even at the 99-cent level, whatever, I'm going to do a once a month stream for you guys, just you guys. We're all going to be there. I'll send you the links. You could hop in and join, and we'll just have all of us here talking, just like hanging out, so that'd be so once I get to that 50 member level. So yeah, so memberships are cool things. It helps support, pays for art, pays for the restream bills, it pays for all the little shit, so I totally appreciate it. I know Joe does too.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's awesome. I didn't know any of this.
Yeah, it's pretty slick. So I release all my videos members only first, and then it goes public, whatever time I set. So it's kind of neat like that, Yeah. So thank you all. Thank you for gifting the memberships and for being members. Appreciate it. All right, Joe, is there anybody you ever want to collaborate with? Other than, Gary's not here anymore, but like who right now who's writing or doing anything would you collaborate with? Would you ever? I asked Greg this. He says, no, I'm a control person. Is there anybody that you would say, I'd love to work with this person?
Well, I have offered to help with the Castle Zagging stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So here's hoping.
All right. That's awesome, man.
But that's more that I just want to work on that project.
Okay.
But in terms of working with a specific individual, Frank, that would be
kind of cool.
Awesome if I could pull it off. Working with Frank or or Rob.
Yeah.
It's,
While they're here still.
We've touched on, we've talked about it, but nothing's ever really materialized for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
But the old, the old guard, they invented all this stuff. It'd be a complete treat to work with any of them. I see them at cons, so you know them, but to actually work with them, that would be awesome.
Be awesome. Just to understand how they do it, where their mind is, how it works. It's like me and Tim were getting together to do something on our show. We did like a 3-episode thing on our Monday night show where we were writing a module, and I've edited his stuff, so I know his mind works very differently to me. But actually sitting together down to do this together, we are so different in approach. Tim is granular, starting at the bottom up, and I'm like, let's start with the cosmos and drill down. And Tim's like, let's start with the rock and drill up. So it's like that level of difference. It's been a hell of a thing. It's been a hell of an experience. So it's kind of neat. What would you say makes a product yours? Like this is obviously a Joe Bloch product because, what would you say that is your thing?
Because at least what I aspire to do is I aspire to make it feel like it came out in the 80s.
All right.
I try to give it that look and feel, not only in the content, but in the the look of it as well. So little things like
the orange spine.
The orange spine, but even stuff much more subtle than that. Like if you go into the bestiary, you'll notice that there's work from different artists on the same page.
Okay.
With really different styles.
Okay.
And I do that intentionally because I noticed that for the original books, the DM's Guide, Player's Handbook, Monster Manual, they had a bunch of different artists with very different styles. So on one page, you could see something by Tramp and something by Sutherland right next to each other.
Interesting.
And
I never noticed that. I never thought about that, but you're right.
Exactly. That's the beauty of it. It's little things like that it's some of it is born out of nostalgia.
Yeah.
But it's, I am deliberately trying to recreate that mindset of what it was like in the 70s and 80s. And I do it, I not only with the words, but also with the physical production.
Mm-hmm. How do you do it with the words? I mean, you're writing the guy. Now you don't write in high Gygaxian. I know that.
I try. I have some flashes in there, but like we said before, I don't talk down. I'm not afraid to use big words.
Yes.
And that's a lot of it is that right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Using allusions to the older fantasy works, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I go out of my way to do that. And a little bit, it can come across as atavistic at times, but I enjoy it. And that's part of the goal for me is to recreate that feeling of being in high school again.
Yeah. 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 Now, do you lean into the Appendix N books? Do you, like, have you read them all? Do you know them all? Do you lean into and put that shit in your book? I know you did the Lankmar stuff, but
I've read them all. I don't think I've read 3 Hearts and 3 Lions, but that's about it.
You just read that.
Because I just read one time. I went on a tear, and I just made sure I had read everything.
Yeah.
But I mean, it all kind of blends together. I don't consciously try to do something because I read it in Fitzlieber. But it all contributes to kind of a gestalt.
Yes. I get
this because fantasy back then was very different than fantasy is today. It's just the way the way the stories are structured. The language, obviously, there is just something different about stuff that was written in the 20th century versus what's been written in the 21st century. Which is not to say that the newer stuff is bad.
Yeah.
But to me, I can tell right away when a book was written just by reading a couple of pages.
What do you think it is? What's the vibe? What makes it different?
It's really hard to put my finger on it. It just feels more modern. I mean, some of it is obviously going to be, gender roles and things like that. A Conan book from 1930 is going to feel very different than a contemporary young, adult fantasy novel written today.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of it, but that's not all of it. There's something. It's very difficult to put your finger on.
I think it goes beyond the gender.
It goes for sci-fi too.
What's that?
It's easier to identify in sci-fi because in sci-fi written in the 40s and 50s and some of the 60s was much more scientific process oriented.
Yes.
Like a lot of the Heinlein stuff is much more about the technology
Mhm.
than it is about the people.
Yeah.
Whereas today, it's all about the people.
Yeah.
It's all about the characters and
The
everything. Maybe
feels.
that's part of it for the fantasy too, is that modern books tend to delve deeper into the personalities and histories and psychologies of the characters.
Yeah.
Whereas older works are much more concerned with story and
Mhm.
setting.
Mhm.
Might be part of it too. Because you don't really get to hear Pippin's inner monologue in the Lord of
Yeah.
the Rings,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but try to get away from an inner monologue in one of George R. R. Martin's works.
Yeah. No, yeah. I get that. I think there's a certain level of I mean, I don't think I could phrase it as like a Bronze Age mentality in older books, like Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser, Conan books, Solomon Kane. There's something about there's a brutality level that
Yeah,
doesn't exist nowadays, and there's a certain level of maybe it appeals to Gen X and all that because you know water hoses and neglect and all that, but there's a sorry little gnat flying around here trying to kill it, but there's a certain brutality level that's there that shocks the conscience of a modern day audience. I think, you know what I mean. There's a certain level of the way people dealt with each other. I remember there was a Conan book, and I forget the story, but he was for some weird ass reason he's in a court of law getting arraigned for some bullshit, and he just he's like, yeah, he's amused by the whole thing. And then he's like, they try to convict him for doing some bullshit. He's like, fuck you. And he rips the place apart, just killing people, running out to a ship.
the God in the Bowl, maybe.
I forget what it was called because I read them all in a blur. It's like
Yeah.
all these stories are like it's right back there, somewhere in one of those books. But and he said something to the effect of, and I was talking to Jeff Delaney in Massachusetts about this at the last Total Con, and he said something to the effect of, you're all fine and dandy with these fancy rules and of behavior, but when it all hits the fan, it all gets the way I am. You know what I mean? Like I will survive, motherfucker. And when all your rules fall apart, it's just me and my mentality. And I think that there was an unapologetic approach to writing back then that recognized that fact of life, that life is war. Life is not polite society. And there's a certain approach that people think now in terms of modern society that society is always at war with interludes between wars and everything. And people look at wars as an anomaly, but I think wars might be the actuality and everything else is a rebuilding for the next war, just interludes for power grab.
Well, you've seen that meme where like hard times create strong men create easy times create weak men, weak men
Weak
create
men create hard
hard times.
times.
Yeah.
And we're coming up on hard times. We're in a weak men era right now. Yeah, we're definitely in this weak men era, and it's all going to hit the fan. So yeah, I think so. It's an interesting thing, though. It's an interesting thing.
Well, Steve Hartline, did I flesh out the land holding tables? Yes, indeed. If you look at a book on drive-through called Adventures Great and Glorious, you'll find it there. Unfortunately, that is one I'm in the process of redoing because the mass combat system sucks, and I'm happy to admit that. But the rest of it is very interesting. It's got like high-level spells, and it's got plenty of stuff for exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, this one here.
Yeah.
There you go. And there's links to some of Joe's products in my description on YouTube, guys. If you're watching there, that'll get you to his channel or his channel is that'll get you to his site on drive-through. And from there, you see everything. Click on BRW Games. So just click it in there, and you're good to go. Okay, so yeah. What would you say, Joe, is your biggest success ever?
In terms of publishing or in terms of everything?
In the publishing era, but everything too. What the hell? Throw it out there for everything too.
Well, I mean, that's got to be my family.
Okay. All right. All right.
I've got a wife of 25 years, and I've got a son who's 24, and he's he's actually doing what he majored in college. So
wow, it's a rare thing these days.
Yeah, it's like me with my medieval history degree, working in IT.
Yeah. Damn, that's pretty nice, man. All right, publishing wise, in the publishing sphere, rather, what's your biggest success in the publishing sphere?
I mean, it's pretty much a tie between Adventures Dark and Deep and Castle Mad Archmage, but I'm gonna give it to Adventures Dark and Deep, because it's more flexible. it's more of what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even though they're both really popular and
Yeah.
in their way. You know, but I yeah, Adventure Dark and Deep, because literally it's what I wanted to play 40 years ago.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. All right. Biggest failure, Joe. Publishing wise, not personal. You want to get the personal failures.
The mass combat system, Adventure's Great and Glorious. It's a complete unplayable disaster.
Okay.
And it is just it fills me with shame, great shame.
Did you play test it or just sort of write it and figured, this will work?
Yeah, we play tested it and it was clunky and fiddly, and I published it anyway.
That's not what you're going to use at the con in New York, is it?
No. That the con is my miniature rules,
Okay.
Swords of Battle, which is its own. It's completely. This was it was all mathematical formulas, and each thing had points. And oh my, I'm getting a migraine even thinking about it. But I had to put it in the book, so
yeah, you got to do it. Did you ever do battle system? Ever use that?
Yeah, we did battle system back in the day. I didn't quite like it because I was looking for something that was more mass battle, and that was more of a skirmish game.
Yeah.
It's like Chainmail 2001. You know, it's I want something where one figure is 50 guys or 20 guys.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay.
That's that takes that goes back to the historical wargaming we were talking about. You know, I prefer things at that larger strategic scale. You know, the big huge scale on the table rather than when I'm doing a war game. And I know I'm on the opposite side of almost everybody in the gaming world who love because skirmish games are all the rage.
Yeah.
But I would much rather see a line of French Napoleonic infantry than a half dozen monsters on a Gloomhaven board.
You were a history buff, so I'm a history major, right? And a history buff, so yeah, that makes sense. That totally makes sense. What is the most overrated RPG product out there ever, anytime?
Oh,
we got a good one. It looks like
5th edition.
Oh, really? Interesting. Just fucking laying it out there, huh? All right, 5th edition.
Yeah, I mean, I would have said 4th edition, but that's not overrated because nobody likes it.
No, it sucked. I call that a living abortion. 4th edition.
It was terrible, but 5e is just because everybody likes it because I think they think they're supposed to like it.
Yeah,
especially among younger gamers, it's like, and it's just bad. I write for it and I don't like it. I've played it and it takes the game in a completely different direction than its origins.
What do you think? What's the bad about it?
I mean, and I'm going to speak in generalities here, and obviously I know you could use any set of rules to play any kind of game.
True,
I get that, but 5e, especially the 2024 5e, so 5.1 or 2 or whatever the hell they're calling it this week. The system is so intertwined with itself. It's so homogenous, the system itself, the crunchy bits, that it fights against you if you try to change anything.
Interesting.
One of the things I love about 1st edition is its modularity.
Okay.
Right? Because you have and this is something a lot of people think is a down, is a bad thing, but to me it's a plus. And that is the fact that you have one system to do something over here, and one system that works completely different to do this over here, and then a separate system over here to do this thing, and then another system over here to do this thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of modern players don't like that because it's inconsistent. Oh, you have to roll high over here and low over here, and this uses percentiles and this uses a D20. But when you think about it, back in the 70s and the 80s, we were doing a lot of kit bashing. We were all fiddling with the rules. And you see this in from the very earliest days of the hobby in like the zines like Alarums and Excursions, or in Dragon Magazine, where you'd have here's a system, here's a new class, here's a new system to do this, here's a new way to do coins, here's a new way to do that. And we would even take stuff out of other games. We could you could take the magic system out of Call of Cthulhu. You could take Arms Law and Claw Law for the combat system, and still use the monsters out of the monster manual and call it D&D.
Yeah.
Modern D&D, if you try to tinker, it actively fights against you, and it is way too easy to break something over here because you changed something over here, and that is really what I dislike about it the most.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of other things that not to like about it.
Yeah.
But to me, the fact that it's like one of those, sometimes you'll get like a computer and they don't let you open it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If you open this, you're breaking the warranty.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you're
I want
screwed.
to put in a new card. I want to upgrade the memory chip in my.
Yeah.
They won't tell you how to open the machine. And that's like this. It's a impenetrable box, and you're just supposed to turn the crank.
I modified it heavily.
Just accept what you get.
But what I did with 5th edition, my house rules I'm known for infamous house rules. But what I did with 5th edition, the only way, because I came across that too, you change a little thing, it fucks something else up, So I changed big things. I eliminated entire classes. All right, this class, Eldritch Knight, nope. Assassins, nope. Just like I took an axe to it. Basically, I tried to make it so much like old school D&D as much as I possibly could. I just took an axe to massive parts of it. It's the only way I could actually play this thing. And the other thing I did was I ran for a long time a multi-year campaign. But it was mostly me and my brother one-on-one. They added one guy into it once the main group fell apart and everything, right? Because I got so disgusted with it. But I found it worked really good in a one-on-one game or a one-on-two game. One DM, 1 or 2 players. By eliminating or limiting healing. Once you limit healing and get rid of the death save shit, it worked okay. It was usable. You know what I mean? And it was doable. But yeah, other than that, it's Care Bear D&D. That's the way I look at it. Just Care Bear D&D.
There is a game called 5 Torches Deep, which uses the very stripped down core of the 5th edition rules and makes it a lot deadlier. It's worth checking out. But the fact that you have to pretty much tear it down to the studs in order to make it fun, says something about, why bother? Why not just start over?
Yeah,
why not just start from
look at that as fun. When I was trying to learn 5e, I was running multiple games on multiple places. One was at a game store with a bunch of young people in their 20s. They had experience with it. They'd played it before, this and that, and I just started ripping things apart. I started my approach of little things, eliminating little things, until I learned later on I have to eliminate big things. So I eliminated little things, and one kid says to me, "Why did you do that?" I said, "To make it harder." And he looked at me like I was evil, like could not comprehend. Why would you want to make it harder on the players? But then they enjoyed it because when it was harder, it was more appreciative. And when they
more satisfying,
it was
more satisfying to overcome some real danger.
Yeah, it was a true victory. That what they did. Yeah. It was fantastic. It was fantastic. So it's like they finally grokked the thing. Once I did all that. Yeah. All right, that's interesting.
There's a word you don't hear every day.
No. But what's a weird thing is I signed up for Twitter so I could stream on it, and I have to pay X amount, $8 a month, and I get Grok for free. So I've been diving into Grok here. So now Grok's in my head. I got a couple of questions for you. I put this out on my Discord that you're going to be coming in, and some people had some questions for you over there. VB Weird said, "Now that D&D is battered, what are the prospects for indie RPG publishers? Will we see a rise in homebrew worlds and systems? What do you think?"
Well, I mean, we already saw it. I mean, you said yourself with Shadow Dark. They struck at exactly the perfect time, and they've got a very nicely put together game. From the production values of their game, the layout and everything is really top notch, and it's really attracting a lot of people. I don't think it's going to be a D&D killer. I don't think anything ever will be. I think the stuff that Cobalt Press is doing. I don't think it'll have its niche, just like Pathfinder has its niche. The only time Pathfinder was more popular than D&D was 4e. And that's because, as we said, 4e sucks.
Yes.
And it'll be interesting to see if the sales numbers this year and next year, how Pathfinder compares against it. I mean, yes, you're going to see more indie games. You're absolutely going to see more indie games because more people are going to become disaffected by 5e. But what I'm seeing, and this is completely anecdotal, is that the people who don't like the new rules are just staying with the old 5e rules.
Yeah.
They're my son, my son's girlfriend, they play all the time. And when I mentioned I was going to be publishing some 5e stuff, they asked for for the new one, and I was like, yeah, I have to, because that's what the rules are on DM's Guild. And I heard, yeah, we're still using the old rules. They didn't even bother, because why? They like the game they have. Why would they change? So, and that is exactly the reason I stick with first edition.
Yeah.
I played second, but then I went back to first.
I invested just in looking at, I mean, books over there. So many 5e books. I don't play it anymore, but over the years, because I was running so much on Roll20, I would buy the 5e stuff on Roll20. I probably dropped, in addition to hundreds of dollars of books over here, I probably $300 or $400 in 5e stuff on Roll20, right? Modules, books, adventures, kits, packs, monsters, whatever the hell, Lions and Tigers and Bears don't mind. And so why in the hell would I lose that investment for a tiny, tiny little upgrade, which probably sucks ass anyway, because it's catering to stupid shit? Right. It makes no sense. It makes no sense to upgrade. It's easier to take a PDF that the PDF fairy delivered to your hard drive, look in there, find the 3 things that you like that they did, and drop it into your game as a house rule, right? It's not a significant enough change to me. I think it's a less significant change than 3.5 was from 3rd edition. This 2024 from D&D 2014.
I don't know. I mean, mechanically, they did make some serious changes in the progression of powers. So, like in 5e, you get, when you hit this level, you get a Benny. When you hit this level, you get a Benny. They did mix those around a little bit, because I had to change, some of my stuff to accommodate the new rules. And it does, those are not insignificant changes, but on the I'm really struggling myself to find out, other than we need to sell more books, why they bothered. Because you changed some stuff around and you made it a little easier for players, but their focus is all on the digital stuff anyway.
And that
what happened to their BTT.
Chubby Funster's yelling at me for wasting my money on that slop. Could have bought almost anything. Do better. Yes, thank you, Greg. All right.
I mean, I'll still buy 5e stuff. I'm buying it anything from WotC nowadays, with the exception of the new DM's guide, because it had that Greyhawk section in it. Anything I buy from WotC these days is done on the aftermarket. I'm buying used. And I'm only buying stuff that has Greyhawk content in it.
No, that makes sense. They're doing a huge push, it seems to be, in Greyhawk. I think my take on why they're pushing Greyhawk now is because they literally got rid of everybody who had a clue over Wizards. And there is so much. There's 1 trillion words written on Forgotten Realms. And if you, God forbid, change something or put something against the Forgotten Realms canon, you get called down on your shit by 800,000 people online. But
that is one knows about
Greyhawk.
That is Greyhawk's got some bloat in it now too over the years, but not like nothing compared to Forgotten Realms. And that's exactly why I don't play Forgotten Realms. Is because back in the day, I remember before they published Forgotten Realms, when Ed Greenwood was just publishing those articles in Dragon, they had all little bits of, the swords of the realms and stuff like spells, pages from the mages and stuff. It was great. It was very evocative. It was very cool. It was, you could tell he put a lot of love into it. And then the gray box came out, and I was all over that thing. I loved that gray box.
Me too.
Because it was, it was new. But it was loaded with lore, and it was just right. And they said, and didn't they promise we will never touch Sembia?
Oh yeah,
country?
Lion sacks of shit. Yeah.
We will leave that for every DM to do on their own. And then a year later, there's like a Sembia book. But then you get all the novels and all the box sets and all the source books. It's just, it's impossible to keep up with. It's impossible to, I can't make a dungeon, because I don't know if I'm going to step on some piece of lore in some novel.
Exactly.
But if, in Greyhawk is a little like that now, because they it's there's a little bit of bloat. But it's nothing compared to that.
I think that because the gray box was written for first edition, and that's what we're talking about here. It was a great art on the cover. I started a Forgotten Realms campaign, a few years ago, and I took the gray box, Savage Frontier, Waterdeep in the North, and that was it. That's all I used. That was all you needed. Everything else you could just play with, Everything else you could just play with there. It was perfect. It was actually perfect.
One of the things I like about Greyhawk too is they did at least when Gary was still with TSR, they would show, not tell. And what I mean by that is they would expand the setting using modules, using adventures, rather than just dumping a source book full of lore on you. You had the gold box or the folio before it, and then you had things like Village of Hamlet that explored a thing, and then Temple of Elemental Evil gave you some stuff, and there was a few articles in Dragon, but it was manageable, right? And you would learn more about the setting through the published adventures, like White Plume Mountain. That opened up a little part of the world that we didn't really know anything about, or in trying to Tomoacon, which opened up the omens and things like that. So they did it through the adventure process rather than just doing these big huge lore dumps on you.
Yes.
And I thought that was an infinitely better way to go. And then they just started.
DMs ran their campaign worlds, dude. It's how we expanded our own worlds. We did an adventure here so we could flush out the continent or that range, or that region, or the realm, or whatever. Yeah, that's how we did it. It was organic.
Right.
It was an organic way to do it.
The Taverns at SodgeConf, you got page of history, and that really fleshed out some things around there. But that's all you need, because that's what you needed for the thing. But it still plugs in, and when you study it closely, like I do, like fanatically, like a rabbi, looking through the scrolls, looking for connections.
You do the bow, and open the big ritual.
But it plugs into other stuff that it was already published. So there is some grand design back there, but you only see little parts of it when they peek open the curtain and then close it again. So I love that part.
Now, what do you think? And I know we've had a little bit of this conversation at various cons or whatever, but in brief, for one, I wasn't a Greyhawk fan until Carl Sargent's stuff.
Right.
I loved his stuff. And it was in part because I realized that he thinks the way I do, right? He's a big top-down guy and drills down into it, but he also puts a very realistic approach, historically realistic approach with the war, the whole After the Ashes thing. You know what I mean? Or right beyond the After Ashes, beyond the Ashes, whatever the hell. From the Ashes. Yeah, from the Ashes. I don't want to hit After the Ashes all the fucking time. Beyond the Ashes, yeah, from the Ashes. But those books, E is the Evil and the Marklands and all that, they were phenomenal for me. Like, they were the way I like to approach things. They were perfect. And it informed me in the way I design all my campaigns after that. For me, that was like, this is the model I'm going to use. And it fleshed out a lot of stuff in Greyhawk that I never really gotten into before. So it hit like a lot of things for me. It was really good. Now, I know a lot of people are like, fuck that, because Greyhawk is Gary and Gary is Greyhawk, and nothing else matters other than Gary's Greyhawk, right? Where do you come down on the Carl Sargent stuff?
I didn't like it at the time, but over the years, I've come to appreciate it more and more.
Okay.
And at the time, I was with most of the Greyhawk fans, and we didn't like the idea of advancing the timeline and all that stuff, and we didn't like the tonal change in the setting, because the Greyhawk we knew that was set in 576 was balance.
Yes,
right? There were good was there and evil was there, and neither was ascendant, and it made for a very nice strategic tension that you could run a game in.
Yep.
And then the Carl Sargent stuff comes, and now evil is on the rise. Good is on its back foot, and it's a very different tone for the setting. But then they advance the timeline again to The Adventure Begins and kind of reset the tone. So if you look at the Carl Sargent stuff as a way stop in the progression of history, I can appreciate it a lot more.
Okay.
And what I would probably do in my campaign, what I want to do in my campaign, I should say, is have all that stuff happening in the background, right? The players don't need to be directly involved in the war.
Okay.
But if you know what's happening at any given time in any given place, you can say, rumors are coming in of, the Shieldlands have fallen or whatever. It might not have any direct impact on your game, on what the players are doing, but at least it's going to give the impression that it's a living, breathing world.
Yeah.
In the going on around them. Plus, there's the fact that Gary himself advanced the timeline.
Yeah.
Adventure in Dragon Magazine, he had those series of articles, the events of the Flonesse, and those were describing what was going on in 577 and 578. That's by definition advancing the timeline.
Yeah.
And in fact, what I did on my blog is I completed them, because he didn't do them for the entire Flonesse. They kind of pulled off. So I picked them up and I finished them. I did them for the entire Flonesse.
All right.
They're on the blog on the free downloads thing.
That's cool. That's cool.
I was very happy to be able to do that.
All right. Now, we said the most overrated product. What is the most underrated product? Not just anything, any in the RPG scene. What is like, oh my God, why don't people buy this? It's the greatest goddamn thing ever.
That's a tricky one, because there's a lot of great stuff out there. Harn is an amazing product.
Rob just got a boner. Wherever you are, Rob Conley, and I know he's got a boner out there. Rob loves the Harn shit.
Yeah, I do too, because it's really incredibly well done. And they're still doing. I didn't even realize they were still coming out with new Harn stuff. On the other hand,
did you back the new Kickstarters?
I did not. Stuff? I did not. But it's kind of comforting to know it's still out there.
Yeah.
Pendragon is the same way. It is a fantastic. And there's one. Paladin is another. It's a spinoff of Pendragon, and there's another one too. I think. They're out there. I think I have them. But that's another great system that's been around forever, and a lot of people still don't know about. But I'm going to go with Ogre, the Steve Jackson game.
All right.
Because for me, I think it's a perfect game.
What is it?
You don't need to. What's that?
What is it? Because it was all the rage a few years ago when they had this big Kickstarter that cost $1 billion to back it, and I didn't know what it was. So
it was a designer's edition. So Ogre is it's a hex war game. It used to be little cardboard counters, now it's little plastic miniatures, and it's basically one gigantic cyber tank against a whole army of tanks and missile tanks and hovercraft and infantry. And you, as the big massive tank takes damage, you check off boxes on a sheet.
Okay.
So you take damage, you could lose this gun, you could lose your tread and go slower or whatever. And the thing, there's all kinds of different scenarios and everything, but basically it's an even match. One giant thing against a whole bunch of little fuzzy wuzzies.
Okay. Fuzzy wuzzies.
And the system itself, the rules are so dirt simple.
Yeah.
But you get such a bewildering variety of strategies come out of those rules. And that to me is exactly how a game should be. Really simple rules, very complex strategies.
All right.
Like chess. Chess is exactly is the quintessential example of that.
Yeah.
But what's happened is, you're right. They had this big $1 million Kickstarter, big to do. I've got the box sitting back there.
Yeah.
Tons of minis come out. They've got expansion minis, and then it's just gone.
Yeah, it was the rage, and I didn't know what it was. I never heard of it before, because for me, I was a very narrow geek. It was D&D. I didn't know what the hell that was. I wasn't, Walden Books didn't have Ogre, so I didn't have it, right? So, it was that was the way. So, and I'm like, what is Ogre? Is it a mini? Was it a big Ogre mini? I didn't know what the hell it was, and then it was gone, and it dropped off the map.
Right. And it seems like they're getting rid of it on their website. They're things that used to be available aren't available anymore. So it's like they're just letting it tail off again. Which is baffling, because it's a very good game, and when they support it, it's very popular. I run it at conventions all the time. I'm running it at Page. I run it at Historicon. It's always packed. I always get a full table. So people like the game. I run the miniatures version, which is just basically on a field rather than with the hexes, but it's same game pretty much. And it's it's really baffling to me that they don't give it more support. But Steve Jackson Games is focused on Munchkin. Munchkin is selling zillions of dollars. You can get those in Barnes and Noble, for crying out loud. So that's their focus. That's where their bread and butter is, and that's pretty much the only thing they actively want to support, because it's making them so much money, which sucks.
Can't blame them.
And they won't and they won't let anybody touch ogre. Ask me how I know.
How do you know?
I asked.
Oh.
I tried. Nothing. I had a whole proposal. Nothing. Just
Jesus. That's weird. Why wouldn't
well,
they?
Because I think Steve designed it, and I think it's he views it like it's his baby. And even though he doesn't want to actively support it because he's got this other thing going on, he doesn't want
anybody else to fuck with.
I mean, I'm just guessing there.
Yeah.
Which is a shame because I love the game. I am a ogre booster.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'll just keep running it at cons.
That's yeah. And maybe as long as you're enjoying it, it's out there. You got enough to support your own hobby with it. That's fine. You know what I mean? It's too bad other people can't enjoy it. And if you ever run it at ShireCon or something, let me know because I'll jump in because I want to try it. I'll try everything once. I know.
I'll probably run it at ShireCon.
Okay. All right, I'll jump in. Definitely. Another question from my Discord was Dirty Dwarf. Nice name, by the way. He want to ask you about what do you think the value of rules light systems and emerging gameplay in the hobby? Because I know your system is rules heavy.
My system is not rules heavy.
Yeah.
Although I am actually working on, or I should say, struggling with making a light version of Adventures Dark and Deep.
Really?
It's down to 297 pages.
That's light, huh? Nice.
This is as light as I can make
this book.
But I'm gonna keep knocking at it until I can get it.
What's the approach, Joe? What are you taking? Somebody told me because I know my game I'm going to write eventually is going to be rules heavy. It's like yours. It's like a 2E 5E crossover, big fucking book. And Eric was telling me do a rules light, because he does swords and wizardry light, swords wizardry continue light. I'm like, Eric, I can't because it strips away everything that I think is good about my game. If I do rules light, I'm just doing OSC. What the hell is it then? But how are you approaching it? How are you trying to get it done?
I'm basically just trimming off the independent pieces, right? So I'm getting rid of it. It stops at level 9.
Yep.
For all the character classes, I'm getting rid of all but the core character classes.
Okay.
I'm getting rid of all the sub races.
Okay.
I'm getting when you cap things at level 9, that means you don't need any spells of 5th level and higher.
True.
Getting rid of monsters. So I'm not getting rid of mechanics so much as I'm getting rid of variations on mechanics.
Gotcha. That's an interesting.
And I'm not going to include stuff on going underwater.
Yeah.
Things that are corner cases. It's going to be focused on dungeon crawling and wilderness adventures. So I'm basically just peeling off things that are like we were talking about before. It has a lot of independent boxes.
Yes.
Right? A lot of independent systems that you can just take out and throw away.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It makes it easier that way.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my approach to it. But I'm going to have to do a lot of simplifying of the language, I think, because I've got it down about as far as I can.
Okay.
From that approach. So now I'm going to have to go and take out chunks of text from monster descriptions that's extraneous.
Yeah.
Things like that, and I'm going to have to go through that process at this point.
Okay, take out the fluff, leave the crunch. How did you adapt, Joe, when the OGL crisis hit? What did you have to do? What did you everybody was shitting their pants. I remember talking private chats with everybody on Facebook and here and there in conventions. Everybody's like, oh my God, we got to strip everything from the old D20 OGL out of this because we don't know if they're going to sue us for it. And what are we going to do? I think Castles and Crusades had to have a whole new edition. I think Jeff Talini was worried about it. A lot of people were thinking, what the hell are we going to do about this? What did you do? How did you approach the OGL crisis?
I took the OGL out of my books and changed the monster names back.
What do you mean? What does that mean? Taking the OGL out? What did you have to do?
I do not publish under the OGL anymore. I do not include it in my books, nor am I bound by its terms.
Gotcha.
I am now publishing. Publishing under free use.
Okay.
Fair use.
Okay. Fair. Okay. All right. So wow. So you kept everything the same. You just said it's not an OGL book.
I'm going commando.
I believe Greg Christopher did that with his book. He just said he doesn't use it. He doesn't use it. He never did. He never did for Ambition and Avarice. So Greg, if you're still here, you chime in. But I remember asking him that too. I said, what are you going to do? I don't know if I don't do it. Yeah.
When they put the Creative Commons stuff, they put the 5e rules out under Creative Commons.
Yep.
I threw that in just as a fig leaf.
Yeah.
But my game has mind flayers. My game has displacer beasts. My game has Umber Hulks.
Renamed?
Yeah, I put them back. I changed the names back.
Okay.
The only reason I had to change the name is because I was publishing under that license. By not publishing under that license, I am no longer constrained by its terms.
So you could call it a mind flayer.
Well, you can try. Nobody's
sued you yet, right?
The Pinkertons have not come to my door yet.
Yes. Yeah. All right, that makes sense. It's been out there so long. Okay. All right.
I mean, under the concept of fair use, there's no certainty when you do this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
One of the good things that the OGL gave you was certainty, and they took that certainty away.
They did
when they tried to revoke the OGL.
Okay.
So I'll take the Creative Commons thing that they gave us, because that doesn't place me under any constraints.
Yeah.
That doesn't come with any rules other than you have to put this little paragraph in the front of your book.
Do you have that? I haven't looked in your core rule book here. Is it somewhere?
You'll see it in the core rule book in the bestiary.
In the bestiary? Okay. I didn't see. I thought you might have had to put. For some reason, I thought you had to put a little 5e whatever the fuck thing in the corner or something like that. I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
When you go on DM's Guild, you have to put the DM's Guild logo in the corner.
Oh, okay. All right. Interesting. Okay, so I have something.
It's basically I'm probably, I'm probably closer to the edge of IP law than I want to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm, it is what it is.
I'm a little paranoid about that. Like Tim's thing that we were doing together had a little mind flayer as the main beast. And I'm like, if I'm going to even make a penny off of this, I don't want to have a mind flayer in there. So I'll call it a brain collector or some shit. You know what I mean? Change it around, call it something different, make them different looking or whatever. But it's just easier. You're more ballsy to me on that, in that approach, but I've never done this before either. So yeah.
And I wouldn't, I certainly wouldn't recommend that others do it what I did, without giving it a lot of thought and talking to an attorney.
Yeah. That's the key. Talk to a lawyer who knows their shit and somebody who specializes in this stuff. Whoever the hell these, the Cobalt Press and Kelsey Dan, all these people are use those people. Yeah. They know they've dived into it already. They don't have to do any original research. So yeah.
I mean, basically, it comes down to if WotC really wanted to, they could slap him with a C&D and a lawsuit, and I would have to take them to court to prove that I should be allowed to do this.
Yeah, and then
I don't think they would do that.
I don't think so either, unless they wanted to make a lesson. You know what I mean? And something like that, teach a lesson and use it as an example, right? So exactly. That's the thing, but the problem is going to court. It'll cost you $100,000 to defend it, right? And so it's like, Jesus Christ, is it worth, or is it just worth just deleting the mind flayer? That's right. The thing. But Joe, I want to do something I'm trying to do with everybody. I'm going to ask them. I call it the rapid fire section, where it's give me your favorite things. All right. And I did this with Greg, and I sort of want to do everybody interview. I wanted so that people could compare your favorites, Greg's favorites, whoever's favorites, everything. Okay. So here we go. It's sort of a rapid fire. Throw it out there. Your favorite Appendix N book or author?
Tolkien. No, Robert E. Howard.
All right. Any particular books of his, or just in general?
Well, the Conan stuff. I actually prefer the older Conan because it basically the Conan stories go through his life. When he's a young guy and then he's an old king. I actually prefer the older stuff. When he's an older man, more experienced.
Yep.
But Conan.
All right. Favorite D&D related movie or show? D&D related. And that doesn't have to be a D&D, but any swords and sorcery, D&Ds, anything we watched as kids.
Hawk the Slayer.
Oh, really?
I'm gonna give you the Elven Mind Sword for that one.
The what?
The Elven Mind Sword.
Let's hear it.
No, that was it. That was in the movie. The Elven Mind Sword.
Okay. The funny thing was that I did this, asked this question a lot of guys that my blog years ago, and that came up so often. I'm like, what in the hell is Hawk the Slayer? And everybody was like, how do you not know what Hawk the Slayer is? So I watched it about 7 years ago, and I'm like, I know I would have loved this in 1985.
Right.
But now
it's one of those, you got to hit it at the right age. Like the Sword and the Sorcerer is the same way. You hit it at the right age, you will always want it.
Or the Cull and that Cull or Crawler had that spinning thingy through.
Oh,
stupid ass movie, but
the glaive,
fucking awesome. All right. Favorite adventure module?
Village of Hamlet, but not T1 through 4, just T1 Village of Hamlet before they finished the temple.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Cool. Cool. Favorite RPG system, if not yours, somebody else's.
First edition.
First edition. Okay.
AD&D first edition.
Favorite RPG system you want to run but can't for some reason. You can't find a group, can't find players, whatever the case may be.
Ringworld.
Ringworld. Really?
Yeah,
why?
Chaosium came out with a game back in the 80s. It's a licensed thing based on the Larry Niven novels.
Okay.
Unknown Space. And it's Ringworld. We played it once, way the hell back when.
Yeah.
And nobody not these days wants to play it. But it is, if you're a fan of the Larry Niven Ringworld and World of Paths and all those novels, it is fan-frickin-tastic.
Okay. All right. Good deal. Favorite game designer other than Gary and Dave, you know?
I mean, geez.
You can say yourself if you want, you know, big ego.
No, that's Sandy Peterson.
All right, Cthulhu. Okay.
Call Cthulhu.
Okay. All right. Good deal. Good deal. Favorite monster ever? Any system, any game?
The Darrow.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
Why? That's an.
I like because they're the backstory, the literary history of the Darrow is so cool because it's all they come from something called the Shaver Mystery, which was a real thing in the 40s and the 50s, and it had to do with UFOs and the Hollow Earth, and stuff like that. And they came out of that. And when I used them, because I did a couple modules with them, and I built in a lot of that stuff. They had an air car, they were in the underworld, so there's a lot you can do with them by bringing in some of that Shaver Mystery history.
Okay. Favorite memory as a player?
Like an RPG player.
Yeah, RPG player. Favorite memory?
This is a really tough one. Oh man, this is a toughie because I so rarely play.
Yeah.
I'm almost always a DM. Okay, in the Air Force, we were playing Champions, and my character had like a bionic arm, bionic spine, and a bionic leg, so he could lift things.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember one time we were in some firefight with and one of the other players was like this super marksman. And we're fighting the bad guy, and I picked up a garbage truck, and I just went on top of the bad guy.
Nice.
And the sharpshooter guy turns to me and says, I wanted to kill him.
Nice. All right. Favorite memory as a DM?
Okay, this is
other than DMing me, of course, you know, Charka.
So I was DMing Village of Hamlet, Sans, Temple of Elemental Evil, and the players were there, and there was an NPC, NPC illusionist with them that they had gone with, and what they were doing was there were a lot of little dungeons around Hamlet, and they were just hitting those rather than going to the temple. And one of the things was the party was attacked by a blue dragon, and in reality, it was the illusionist. Creating the illusion of a blue dragon.
Okay.
Because he was, he's a bad guy who had gone into the thing, and just by sheerest happenstance, somebody hit the illusionist by mistake. I think they were like using a missile weapon or something.
Yeah.
And they plugged the illusionist, broke his concentration, and the dragon disappeared.
Yeah.
And that's how they figured out what was going on.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool. All right. Other than Gary and Dave, who goes on your Mount Rushmore of RPG developers, designers, people, whatever? Who's on the mountain? 4 people on Mount Rushmore other than Gary and Dave.
Rob Kuntz and Frank.
Okay. Who else? Assuming that the other Gary and Dave don't take a spot. You got 4 people.
I got 4 choice. Oh.
Yeah.
This is the D&D Well,
or any RPG, anything.
RPGs in general.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, Sandy Peterson.
Okay.
So I got one more.
So Rob, Frank Menser, Sandy Peterson.
All right. And
the fourth one, I think, is the hard one because you could always name the first couple, you know?
Yeah, really.
You're Googling it.
I've got to, I don't remember the name. Greg Stafford.
Oh, okay. Why? What did he do?
Pendragon.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
I couldn't.
All right. Good deal, man. Good deal. Now, you mentioned before, and there's maybe a deep dive here, but you mentioned before about the whole Stafford, the conspiracy thing with the Darrow and all that. I didn't realize this. You're deep into the whole conspiracy stuff, like, you know, the lost, you're into Atlantis and the Stonehenge and.
Oh, I love all that stuff. I watch Ancient Aliens every week.
Oh, yeah. I love that.
The
shit,
Hollow
man.
Earth and the giants in Kansas. Yeah.
You got to watch the Y-File show. I'm telling you, if anybody who's a fan of this kind of stuff, it's like this guy got 1 million followers. He's so big. He's now on Amazon. His episodes from YouTube are on Amazon, right? He's that big. He's an awesome. I mean, I found his channel watching like Nerdrotic talking about it, and I dove into this stuff for an entire weekend of like, yes, tinfoil hat mode. You know, this is fantastic shit. You know, but yeah. So what's your theory on Atlantis, man?
I think it's the that Eye of the Sahara.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I think that was the original model for it.
Yep.
The positioning would be right near the Straits of Gibraltar.
Exactly.
The positioning would be right, and the thing is, we can't get close enough to do a proper archaeological examination of it because of the region that it's in.
Yeah.
But I can't help but wonder because if you look at it on a map, you know, like a satellite image, if you picture those concentric rings filled with water, that matches a lot of what Plato was talking about with Atlantis.
Agreed.
So,
I agree. And everything fits in terms of like the flood waters. It looks like a flood came and swept it. You know,
right? Exactly.
It really does.
But you know, they need to go in there with like a battalion of rangers to keep the archaeologists safe.
That's the problem. Yeah. You need special forces to guard that shit as they're. And then when they did, they would never tell us. They would never tell us that shit. You know, they would never share it. Whatever technology they found, they use against us. This fuckers. You know. Yeah. I mean, you hear about this like on Inauguration Day. I think for George W. or one of the presidents got inaugurated. John Kerry, who had run for president, was flying out to Antarctica to like see Antarctica. Who the fuck would fly out there unless they're discovering something in Antarctica? You know, I mean, what's going on in Antarctica? They're digging deep into the 2 miles of ice to find what? Because that place, you look at the map, the Peary's map, right? That shit was above water at one point and had like land and everything. You know, and how long? You know?
Well, that's the thing. Climate scientists will tell, and geologists will tell us it was millions of years ago. So it would be way too early for human habitation.
Yeah, bullshit. It might have been then too, but also I think more recent memory. You know what I mean? You followed the whole Graham Hancock thing?
Oh yeah, I got a bunch of his books.
Yeah, I got it. It was like a whole shelf up there. Graham Hancock shit. Have you seen him on Joe Rogan with with what's his Randall Carlson? Oh my God, dude! Joe Rogan's had Graham Hancock on there like 10 times, and the missing link for Graham Hancock with all of his, you know, where did it go? What happened to it? Where did the flood come from? And the Younger Dryas theory. This is the whole thing with the Younger Dryas theory.
Oh yeah, no, the Younger Dryas is absolutely.
That's what happened.
Is key. And
like
we were saying with the Eye of the Sahara, the desert in general, like down in southern Libya, that all used to be an inland sea at one point, a freshwater lake. And if there's going to be an antediluvian civilization, that is where it's going to be. Agreed.
The biggest problem with the Younger Dryas asteroid impact theory, the comet impact, was that they couldn't find them. They couldn't find the where the hell they were, but they did find, you know, the aftermath, the little not what the hell is it? There's certain metals.
Iridium.
Yes. They found little nodules all over the place, but they couldn't find where the fuck they hit. But then they realized if the shit hit all across the Arctic and Greenland into the ice, it vaporized it and caused massive melt and flooding. You wouldn't see it hitting the ground because it hit the ice, and then it caused a massive vaporization, and then boom, there you go. There's the flood. You know, yeah. How do you tie that into? I know you're into you're me. You're like me in a sense that you're always exploring different belief systems, right? And now I know your latest thing, you're into said ceremonial magic, right? Right now, do you see a connection between the ancient days of Atlantis and the carry on these traditions of ceremonial magic into the current era? Do you see that at all, or no?
Not really, because I'm well enough versed in the historical transmission of the traditions to know that they don't really go back that far. I mean, they do in a mythic sense, but I think in reality they're really rooted more in Greco-Roman or Romano-Egyptian. The maybe first century BC or second century BCE, but any further than that, I think it's sketchy.
Well, where did they get it, Joe? Where did they get it? What happened to the descendants of Atlantis hitting, Egypt and right?
I don't think you need Atlantis for that, because you've got Babylon. You've got Syria, you've got Akkad, you've got Egypt. It's.
And where did they get it?
The Indus Valley civilization. I don't think you need to have Atlantis as a progenitor for a lot of this stuff.
Okay.
Because which doesn't mean that Atlantis wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
But it also doesn't need to be a catch-all.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean? Because
I get it.
It's like Tharizdun. Why does Tharizdun have to be behind everything in Greyhawk?
True.
Why does Atlantis have to be at the bottom of every every mystery?
Because it's fun.
I think
that's why it's just fun. It's just awesome. And we are being mocked in the chat. Let's talk flat Earth and climate change. Blah blah. I knew we get into all that shit, but yeah. All right. So
I did actually. Do you know Stephen Clements?
No.
He's got a channel on Rumble and the cross posts on YouTube. He and I actually did a lengthy conversation just about this kind of stuff, UFOs and conspiracy theories and stuff like that. Yeah,
you should get a link out there, man. Throw it out there. That'd be awesome. Yeah, if you could find it. I don't know if Joe, there's a private chat here. If you put it in the private chat, I could click it and I could put the link out into all the other groups. You know what I mean?
Yeah, let me see if I can dig it up.
Yeah. So, all right, this is cool. And this is on Rumble or YouTube or both?
Should be on both, but I'll get you. I'll be able to find it easier on Rumble.
Okay, all right. So far, we're doing rocking it here, man. We got 28 on your channel watching, 26 on my channel. We got one over on Rumble. We got one on Facebook now. Look at that, Facebook showing up finally. Who we got on Twitch? I don't know how many people we have going on Twitch here. We have one person on Twitch. Thank you, Mr. Twitch person. So we're kicking ass. And we have, throughout the course of this interview, 82 people have looked at it on X. So it's paying off. I wasn't sure about the X connection. Eric was streaming on X, but I think it does work. I think it does actually, people, it shows 82 watched. It doesn't show 82 people who are here who actually are watching. Yes, we absolutely do want to believe. In fact, if you look at my camera here, I'm angling it over there. I want to believe as well. There's the poster up there on the wall. So yes, I do want to believe. I hope it's true. I want to know everything about all the lost mysteries. I am a seeker in that regard. So, there it is. Okay. Let me copy the link, and I'm going to put it into the Restream here. All right. So there is the link, everybody. I'm going to put it over on YouTube as well, so you could click on that link. Anybody's watching on YouTube could click on that link as well. So there you go. Everybody could get that link there, guys. All right, so check it out. I'm gonna dig into that. I got a couple hours. I've been driving back and forth after this show, so I'm gonna click into that and listen along the way, man. I love that shit. I can't get enough of that.
He did an interview with me for D&D stuff, and I mentioned the Darrow thing and the Shaver mystery, and then let's do a whole show just about that kind of stuff. So
if I didn't own this shit, I mean, we were talking briefly before the show, and I'm like, you're into this shit too. Now I want to know what you're doing with you too. Yeah, this is the good shit, man. I love talking about this stuff because, and number one, it's inspiration for my D&D game, and number two, it's just cool. The possibilities are just cool, So yeah, it's awesome shit, man. So here's a couple of questions. Just sort of almost wrapping up here, but give yourself some advice from back. You go back to 15 years ago to you now going back in time. Give yourself some advice about the publishing industry and getting into this. What would you tell yourself?
Don't wait.
Interesting. That's Greg's advice too. Fucking do it, basically, is what he said.
Just do it. Don't wait for it to be perfect. Just do it and accept that it will be flawed, and just keep going. Don't wait for perfection.
Okay. And this might be the same thing, or maybe want to extrapolate on it, but other people who are looking into thinking about publishing, because again, like a lot of people in the channel are talking about this is good stuff and whatnot. What would you tell people about that? Now, other than don't wait, what advice would you give other people out there who are thinking about doing this?
Don't overpromise and then underdeliver, because you need to have you need a reputation for not flaking, especially if you're using Kickstarter. Right? You want to be able to deliver on what you promise.
Okay.
That's why I write my books first. That's why they're all done before I even think about doing a Kickstarter.
Interesting. I remember early Kickstarters, they promised all these ridiculous stretch goals and they failed miserably. And now most Kickstarters, like they're doing like you do, a digital stretch goal, no additional cost stuff. I think what Jeff Talanian does is like you're getting a bookmark, right? Simple, basic things that you're going to get, which are kind of cool, but they're not costing an arm and a leg, so that's good. All right. So Joe, talk about your stuff now. We've talked about it briefly, but let's get into it. Like on BRW Games on drive-through. All right. People want to get into your stuff. Give an overview. What do you have? I think Greg went in for about a half an hour, a little bit overview on all those different things and what they're all about, what you can do with them and this and that. But because I know you have stuff on your blog, right? So you have things spread out over different places.
Yeah, I've got different things for different purposes. So start with the blog.
Okay.
If you go to greyhawkgrognard.com, there's a free resources link at the top.
Okay.
And in there's a huge number of free PDF downloads. There's the Greyhawk, events in the Floness that I finished up. There's armies of the Floness. There's a whole thing expanding the Darlene map out into Zahindia, which is on the far side of the Sea of Dust. And there's a whole thing doing the Backloonish Basin. It has maps. It's got monsters. It's got it's a whole series of articles with new classes and spells, and just really fleshes out the whole thing.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of little miscellaneous stuff in there. Those are all free downloads because they're all published under the fan content policy. So I can use the word Greyhawk. I can use all the names and everything.
We haven't touched on it. What is the fan content policy?
Fan content policy basically says if you're giving something away, you can use most of their trademarks. They're copyrighted words.
Okay.
But it's got to be given away for free. Okay. And then you can use the word Greyhawk. You can use the word Zagig. You can actually do it without having to use clever renaming like I do in some of my other stuff.
Yeah.
So that's the blog.
Okay.
Then there's Drive-Thru-RPG, where I publish as BRW Games. If you search for BRW Games, you'll find the stuff. There's 2 tracks basically. If you're already playing Dungeons, AD&D or first or second edition or Labyrinth Lord or Swords of Wizardry or whatever, if you're already playing a game and you just want to add the new stuff to it, then get the Book of Lost Lore and the Book of Lost Beasts. The Book of Lost Lore has all of the new character classes and spells. It's got alternate rules for things. It's got the skill system. It's got, just all kinds of modular new rules that you can add to your game if you want to. Just to expand it. And the Book of Lost.
I'm going to show it right here. So I'll take us off the screen there, Joe, so they can see a better view. Okay. So here we go. So this is your BRW Games drive-through page.
Yes.
Tell me where to go.
And then there's the Book of Lost Beasts. Is basically just new monsters. Okay. That's all it is. Now, if you want to play a full game, like if you want a standalone game that you're not just adding to an existing game, then you want the core rulebook and the core bestiary. The core rulebook has all the new stuff plus all the rules from first edition.
Yep.
The bestiary has all the new monsters plus all the monsters from the Monster Manual, Fiendfolio, and Monster Manual 2. Once you've got one or the other, you don't need if you've got the core rulebook, you do not need the Book of Lost Lore. If you've got the core bestiary, you do not need the Book of Lost Beasts.
Okay.
Once you've picked one track or the other, then all of the other books apply to you. Because then you can do the Swords of Wuxia, which is a fantasy China book. It's supposed to be a kind of a companion to the Oriental Adventures book from back in the day. It's got a kung fu system. It's got new classes, races, monsters. It's all based on Chinese folklore and wuxia movies, kung fu movies.
Yep.
There's the Swords of Cthulhu, which brings in Lovecraftian horror into your game. So it lets you, it's again got new monsters, classes, races, spells, magic items. It's got all the gods. It's got rules for the dreamlands and insanity and stuff, but it's all in this first edition format, right?
That is my go-to book for all things Cthulhu, Joe. I have all the Cthulhu books. I even have the 5e Cthulhu books. Yes. And I used your book for 5e Cthulhu. It's that good.
Thank you so much. So there's also the Book of Lost Tables, which is right there in the middle on your screen. And that is rules that gives you just hundreds and hundreds of random tables. It lets you do random wilderness, dungeons, towns. It's got a weather generating system. It's got just all kinds of things. Why is the paladin here? What does the thief have in his belt pouch? It's got critical hits and fumbles. It's got all kinds of stuff in there, and all of this is completely modular. So if you want to use one of the monsters from the Cthulhu book, go right ahead. Just port it into your game. If you want to use just the critical hits and fumbles, just use that. You don't need all the other tables if you don't want them. They're all like that.
Nice.
That I think covers all of the rule books that are out there. There's the Mad Archmage, which is my Megadungeon setting. Basically, it's got more than 13 levels of dungeons. It is partially it's a fun house, partially it's got factions, partially it's got plots. You can use it as a tent pole dungeon, so it's always there in the background. You don't have to go to it every day, every time you play, but it's always there as an option. So let's say one of your players can't make it that week. The rest of the players can just say, "Hey, let's just go down to level 4 of the castle and explore." It's designed to let you just go in and come out pretty easily, because
that's how I prefer to use these books. I prefer to use the dungeons, mega dungeons like that, not as a thing that you just dive in and never come out again. You know what I mean? I like to use them as we've done this, we've done that. This dungeon's sitting over there. Why don't we just go fuck with a level? Let's just see what we can do.
That's exactly it. And thank you so much, Steve. I'm glad you like the Swords of Wuxia book. I wrote it because I was always so pissed off that Oriental Adventures was almost entirely Japan focused.
Yeah.
So this is all China focused.
Yeah.
So there's the Castle of Mad Archmage. It's also got some side levels on different things, just in case 14 levels wasn't enough. There are side levels in there. If you scroll off to the right, you'll see a series of adventure modules. Those are the Greyheim Adventures.
The Greyheim.
Greyheim Adventures, right? Not Greyhawk. Definitely not Greyhawk. That first one there, that one is actually designed to be used with the Swords of Cthulhu book, right? It's a Lovecraftian horror, but it's a fantasy adventure as well. Okay. So it's got My Go, but they're in a fantasy setting. The P series of modules is a pirate themed thing, because I didn't think there was enough nautical themed adventures. The V series is for beginners. There's a town adventure, a wilderness adventure, and a dungeon adventure. It's all about a coven of witches, and there's werewolves and stuff. It uses what is for me an experimental wilderness system where there's hex areas that you go to. And it's it works out really well. And the R series is a series for the Great Rift, which is it's a big dungeon thing, and then it gets into an underworld, underworld exploration, like Vault of the Drow, and then it ends up with an underground lost world with dinosaurs and
that. Yeah, it looks like the dinosaur. The Great Rift, wasn't that in the what the hell, near Iaz's lands, right?
Well, no, that's the Rift Canyon, a very very different thing.
Very different than a Great Rift.
Very, very different thing. The Rift Canyon is in Greyhawk. The Great Rift is in Greyheim.
Understood.
So it's very, very, very different thing.
Extremely different. Okay, good. All right, we got the rifts.
And there's the two others there. There's Music Land and Bitterbark Circus. Those are both what do you call it? Demiplanes. The one
Okay.
is a demi-plane of living musical instruments, where the players have to find their way out, and it's full of all kinds of musical puns and stuff like
Okay.
that.
Okay.
And Bitterbark Circus is another demi-plane. It's an evil circus with evil clowns and jesters.
You're clowns. You're triggering people. Did you put a trigger warning in there
Oh,
for clown
I
trigger?
always make sure that cover is prominent at my table when
That's just creepy,
I'm
man.
doing stuff. There's the darker paths. Those are actually going. They're going to be included in a new book, but they're still for sale separately.
Okay.
They're basically evil character classes. So there's the necromancer, the witch, and the demonologer.
Oh, okay.
Which they've got new spells, a few new magic items, and stuff like that.
Okay.
They're short, but they're another thing you can just drop into your game.
All right.
The Treasure of Wellthorpe was an experimental module that is designed to be done without any combat. It's all role playing.
Oh, interesting.
Fine Pair of Rogues is a 5e thing. It's got I don't even remember. I've sold like 10 of them. It's
Made $10.
Yeah. And Adventures Great and Glorious, as I said, is also getting redone.
Yep.
It is basically it's rules for domain play and high level gaming. So it's got things on ley lines and demi-planes, court, how to run a court, like a royal court kind of
Yep.
thing.
Yep.
It's got rules for doing strongholds and stuff for a lot of the different classes. Just ignore the mass combat system, which sucks.
Okay.
And the other thing I did want to mention, when you buy any of my if you buy my books in PDF, and then you decide you like them enough and you want to get the full the hardcover book, there is actually a print upgrade option. I've set things up so
That's
that
very rare. Nobody does that really.
I know and it's hard to set up on drive-through, but once you figure it out, it's very doable.
All right.
And basically, what it is because if you just buy the book, you get the PDF for free.
Yeah.
So if somebody buys the PDF, I don't want to have to, they're getting ripped off because they would have gotten it for free anyway. So it deducts the cost of the PDF.
Okay.
So if you gave me $4.95 for a PDF, and then you decide I like this enough, I want to buy the hardcover.
Yeah.
That $4.95 is getting taken off the price. You
Gotcha.
got to click the print upgrade link, and it'll happen.
Okay, that's cool, man.
And then Mad Archmage, there's a 5e version and a Pathfinder version that's over there.
You got a Pathfinder version too?
Yep.
Pathfinder 2 or 1?
1.
Okay, all right. You thinking about doing 2?
Because I still haven't made enough on that book to pay for the guy who did the first conversion.
All right, that's a big old no. They got a bundle here for various things. Project Oasis, what does that do?
Oh yeah, Project Oasis is a really fun thing. It is a setting for post-apocalyptic games like Gamma World or the Morrow Project or Apes Victorious or one of those things.
All right.
It basically takes all kinds of things from 1960s and 70s post-apocalyptic TVs and movies and swooshes them all together into one setting. So there's intelligent apes, there's brains in jars, there's robot run places, there's a place run by women. I don't know if you remember the old Gene Roddenberry's Earth 2 or Genesis 2. There's all kinds of things. There's the Ultimate Warrior, anything I could find. There's a City of Domes like Logan's Run. There's anything I could think of from that genre and that era.
That's cool, man.
Gets thrown in there. And
I've been meaning to rewatch Logan's Run for years. I watched it as a kid and it fucking disturbed me. I was like 8 or 9, and it was very disturbing. And I'm like, oh my God, it was like I watched Amityville Horror when I was 10. It freaked me out, right? That kind of a thing. But now as an adult, I want to go back and watch Logan's Run again because it's epic. I know that it's
I love that movie. I love the movie.
I hope it's
show
not,
is not so good. The TV show is not so good, but the movie is terrific.
I didn't know there was a TV show. Holy shit! All right, that's how much.
Yeah, it was one of those. Yeah.
Shit, man. All right, cool. So, Joe, anything else what are you working on? Let me stop the share here because is there anything else you want to cover in your products and all that?
I think we covered all that.
Hit them all. Okay. All right. Let me stop the share here. Bring us back. Our lovely Megs. There we go. All right.
What am I working on? Well, we already talked about the AD&D Lite.
Yep.
We've crossed the 300-page threshold on that.
Yes.
I'm working on the Book of Lost Lore 2, which will take those evil character classes that we just saw and all the good stuff out of Adventures Great and Glorious, and
Okay.
some new stuff. I'm working on an alchemist class, and some other things, and those are all going to be in the Book of Lost Lore too. And I'm also working on my own post-apocalyptic book, which will take the Project Oasis thing and add to it a bunch of new classes and races and monsters and stuff, and basically turn Adventures Dark and Deep into Gamma World.
Interesting.
Right. So you could use that for a science fantasy game, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you can have magic users, and there'll be cyborgs, and
Yeah.
it's sort of like the Barbarian. Jesus. How can I not remember this? The cartoon with
Thundar.
Thundar the Barbarian.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
So it'd be kind of like that. The sorcery and science all smooshed together.
Nice.
So that'll complete the series.
What was the hot chick's name? Thundar.
Princess Ariel.
Yes. Princess
And
Ariel.
Ukla the Mock.
Yes, Ukla was great, man. He was a big fucking lunk. I loved Ukla. There's been many versions of Uklas in various campaigns, just because his character was awesome like that. You know?
Yeah, really.
Yeah. All right, cool. So what else is coming out? When are these things coming? When should we look forward to? I know you don't want to set a deadline, but do you have any idea?
I don't know. I have no idea. I would like to get one done this year.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't want to. I never like to commit, because my writing process is so weird, because I will have multiple things going on. I'm also working on a bunch of different adventures in various stages of completion.
Wow.
And it's just whatever. Because what happens is I'll sit there and I'll type a couple paragraphs, and then I'll close the file and I'll open something up and I'll type a couple paragraphs. And it'll just marinate in my mind for months or longer sometimes. And then something will happen and it has to come out.
Yeah.
And it just all comes out of me all at once over the course of a couple of days. And that's how my creative process works. And I don't know which book that will be. It might even be something completely new.
Yeah. You got a question here, Joe. Gray brain syndrome. Did you say the Lost Tables content is in the core rules?
No, the Lost Table content is its own book.
Okay.
What's going to be in there is the stuff from Adventures Great and Glorious is going to be in the new Book of Lost Lores too.
And I think the Lost Lore is in the core rules, though, right?
Right. Exactly.
That
Lost Lore is in the core rules. The Lost Beast is in the bestiary. If you have the one, you don't need the other.
Yep.
But feel free to get both, please.
Yeah, buy them all. And you'll have everything at the various cons. You bring all this stuff with you, print copies of everything, Joe?
Not everything. Like I don't have like the, I don't have the 5e or Pathfinder versions of the dungeon.
Yeah.
Usually, and unless I know I'm going to something that'll hit it, I don't really bring Project Oasis, but I have most everything else.
Okay. And you just
I even have solid steel 100-sided dice that I sell too.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. You can't beat dice. I mean,
you saw them at StarCon.
Yeah. This is a not solid steel, but it's fucking metal. Look at that. Look at the sound of that, because it intimidates the players. When you drop in something like that, they're gonna be scared.
Exactly.
You might throw it at them too. You always have these big dice to throw at players. This is a ceramic or whatever the fuck it's made out of, and I have a foam dice that's the same size, and it looks like this. And so I'll roll some of these, and then if a player pisses me off, I'll grab the foam dice from behind the screen and throw it at them, and they're like, "Oh shit!" Freak them out a little bit,
I still have my dragon bone.
Your what?
Dragon bone.
What's that?
Back in the 80s, it's a wand like this big.
Yeah.
And it's got a little slider, and you can say D4, D6, D8, D10, and you hit the button, and it'll generate a random number.
Holy shit!
They advertised it Dragon in the mid 80s, and it's just like all the rage.
I never heard of it,
and I still have mine. It needs a new battery, but it still works.
All right, that's pretty cool, man. It's pretty cool. All right, so when could people see you next? I know you went to the Long Island convention recently. You went to
Long Island. I was at WizardCon. Next up is Central New York.
Yep, I'll be there.
After that, I'll be vending at DexCon in Morristown, New Jersey.
Okay.
After that, I'm going to have to look at my calendar.
The divots in your table. I really did leave a divot in my table just when I dropped that.
Yeah.
ShireCon is in September. You doing that one too?
Right. ShireCon's in September, but I think I've got one before then. Well, I'll be at Historicon in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, but I'm going there as a player, and I'll run some games.
Okay.
That's my vacation con.
Yeah.
And then nothing in August. Really, I've got nothing in August. What do you know? Then I'll be at ShireCon, and I'm on the wait list for Gamehole Con as a vendor, so we'll see how that goes.
Did you get in there late or
And
something, or are they just overfilled with vendors?
well, because I'm not a legacy vendor, so they were already sold out. So
Gotcha.
And I put in to be a vendor for Mythic Con in Charlotte, North Carolina, but I have not heard back from them yet.
Okay.
And then I will be at PhilCon, which is a sci-fi con. I'm just going there as a family thing.
Okay.
And that brings us through December, and then I'll be at Page in January in Philly.
Right. You're gonna do the one in February up in Massachusetts, TotalCon?
Yeah, I'll be at. Assuming I don't get COVID again, I will be at TotalCon in February.
Yeah.
So I'm doing a lot of cons.
Yeah, you are, man. That's good. You seem to catch Joe everywhere. Then it looks like you made a deal here today. William Scott Turrell bought the Book of Lost Tables, so you got a sale there. All right. Good deal, man. Yeah,
Agile Monk, you're not wrong. I love that con. It is. It's just such a refreshing change to go. It's like going back to college, because we used to do. There was a gaming club in college, and they did Napoleonic miniatures. So it's just like this is going on.
Nice. Listen,
plus
guys.
the place where it is amazing. It's in downtown Lancaster, and it's in it's a hotel and conference center, so it's vast. You don't have to go outside. You just come down the elevators.
That's nice.
In the con.
That's nice.
There's 2 food courts a block away, because the hotel restaurant sucks. It's too expensive, but there's so much great food right there. It's really cool.
Nice. I like that about the North Texas, because the only time I've ever been in Texas, I went to Dallas in the middle of summer for some job training thing, and I didn't realize how fucking hot it was because I landed in the middle of the night, and then during the day I'm in this air conditioned building, and then I went out to go to lunch. I walked out the door, and it was like an attack spell of heat hit me. It was like boom, right in the what? I'm going back in. I'm skipping lunch. I'm the hell with this heat. And so when I was like, I'm going to North Texas, I'm going to fucking die. I'm too fat for this shit. Right. So I get in there and I'm like, I didn't have to leave the building. It was fantastic. It was fucking fantastic. Yeah. That's the way to go. And the prices there were good and everything. I'm going to go next year. That's the plan.
I'm going to try to go next year, but it's a 2-day drive each way. So I got to be careful with it.
Yeah. You got time off from work and all that kind of stuff you got to do. Right. So, yeah.
Plus we're going to England, my wife and I, for my 60th. So.
Nice, man. That's fantastic. Are you going to see anything good out there? You're going to see Stonehenge? The remnants of Atlantis.
We want to do Stonehenge. I want to do Bath. I want obviously London. We want to see Scotland and the Hadrian's Wall and all that good stuff.
Yep.
So
that's cool, man. It's very cool. Yeah. I'm jealous. I want to get there someday, because I never learned a language in school, so it's the one place I could go and actually speak the language. But I do want to see the old stuff. If I could, I'd love to go on top of the Great Pyramid. I heard they shoot you now for trying. So go with that. I would love to travel up inside of it and go underneath the Sphinx, where Edgar Casey talked about the lost vault of Atlantis and all the ancient lore and all that.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta take this kind of stuff. I believe a lot of weird things, but I'm also pretty skeptical when it comes to certain things. And,
yeah.
Like that underground city beneath the Great Pyramid.
Oh yeah.
It's like, no, that is an aquifer.
No. Again, Joe, I want to believe. This is as me. I believe it all until proven otherwise. I'll believe it all, because it's more fun to believe. It's more fun to live in a world where that's true.
True.
It's a very boring bullshit world we live in. Offices and bullshit and yada yada. But I mean, if you have that stuff out there, you're thinking about it. It's like a whole fucking bookcase of stuff back there about this stuff. It's great, man. Yeah. They're just trying to shoot me. Well, I'm a big fucking target. Plus, I don't think I'd make it to the top of this thing. I'd be having a heart attack on the way. So, the hell with that. But listen, guys, we've been here for 3 hours and 20 minutes, Joe. So I appreciate all your time, man. This is good. I know Greg is gloating somewhere because he wanted to set the bar and go over 4 hours. So he's like, yes, I got the longest one so far. So
I will happily cede the award to him.
But dude, I appreciate this. This has been a great conversation. I appreciate all you guys in the audience too.
Yeah, thank you all.
Greg, we have way more viewers in this one, Greg, than we did on yours. So haha.
So I told you I'm a big draw.
Yeah. We got pretty. We've been going neck and neck in the 20s and 30s on equally on our channels. So and then we had like 86 people checked it out on X over the course of the time. A couple Rumbles, couple Facebookers. So yeah, it's been good. So everybody who subscribes to me, go subscribe to Joe. Greyhawk
and
Grognard.
Everybody who subscribes to me, subscribe to him.
Yeah, we're trying to grow us here. The way YouTube is fucking YouTube is fucking over D&D tubers. Apparently, they're not. It's harder to get new subscribers than it was in the past because they're not.
I'm not seeing it. Honest, I know people say that, but I'm not seeing it.
You're doing good.
I just blew past 10,000.
I know you're doing good, man. You're doing good.
And I don't know what I'm doing different, but I'm getting a steady flow of new subscribers, and so
I noticed. The only reason I noticed it, Joe, is because I used to get 1 or 2 new people a day, and I wasn't putting out videos for 4 or 5 months at a time. And I'd still get 1 or 2 members. And now I put out videos, multiple days a week, and I'll get 1 or 2 a day. Right. So it's like it's somehow something got skewed, and my content's not different. Maybe it is a little bit different that I'm pushing different things, but I don't know. It's a weird dynamic. It's a definite slowdown.
Do you do shorts?
No, Eric keeps telling me to do shorts. I hate doing shorts. I tried.
I did too, but every Sunday I do a Greyhawk adventure hook.
Yeah, that's cool.
And it's weird because sometimes the adventure hooks, there's just those 50-second things.
Yeah,
the algorithm will decide everybody needs to see this, and it'll be like my #1 video for the last 6 months. I'll get huge numbers.
Yeah.
So I think that might be why I'm doing a little better.
That might be it. Eric's doing the same
both.
thing.
I've got my long form videos and I got my shorts. So
yeah, I'm gonna have to try it. I'm gonna have to dive in. I really don't like it. What I've done is Eric takes clips of his videos and makes them into shorts. Yeah. I do a short to pimp a video. Rather than take a clip, I'll do a short to pimp a video. You know what I mean? But the shorts that I've done that have been very good was evil DM tricks. I got about a dozen of those. Ways to be an evil DM and fuck your. I've gotten thousands of views on each of those shorts. Some of them, so that really went well because everybody likes
the algorithm treats the shorts differently. So I think that's something to look at.
Yeah. And Flint, I am wearing shorts. I am wearing boxers. Yes, I am wearing shorts right now. It's too fucking hot here. I got to get the AC in the windows. This is the weekend for that. So yeah. But anyway, Joe, thank you so much. I appreciate your time, man. This is awesome. And guys,
thanks for having me. This was really fun.
Yeah, I agree. This has been cool. I think this is going to take off. I mean, people seem to like it. They can stick through a Joe Rogan or a Lex Friedman or a Chris Williamson video for a few hours. They can stick through us talking about D&D, right? So we got the attention span, I think. The older folks have attention span. But and we got the lineup for the next few people. We have Rob Conley wants to get something in here somewhere in the month of May. James Radji says he's going to do something in the month of May. And because I'm still learning how to use X/Twitter, I just realized that people have been commenting on these links that I put out there. And somebody had said to the Greg Christopher video, "Oh my God, I would love to see you do this interview with Autark." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it'd be like, sure, yeah. So and he says, "Yeah, I'd love to do that. That'd be a fantastic thing." So yeah, so I'll be doing one with him. So that'd be kind of fun thing too. Yeah. So we got to set up the time. So we got 3 potential videos coming out for some people. So yeah. So and Saturday afternoon seems to work good. People got nothing to do apparently. So yeah. So thanks very much, folks, for watching. Appreciate all your time and attention. We've had well over 100 people most of this time. So this has been great. So I appreciate it. And Joe, again, thank you very much, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.